Tim, you want to lead us in the invocation?
Yes.
Thank you.
All stand.
Thank you.
I'd like to take a moment of silence. My fellow commissioner, mosquito commissioner Ronnie Falk, passed away yesterday at a young 47. And I'd just like to say, give a moment of silence for him, please. Our Heavenly Father, we ask for your guidance today for this board as we work together with our community, businesses, and the Tourist Development Council to accomplish our goals for the benefit of all. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Tim. Just a quick reminder for everybody to silence their phones and their devices, please. We'll go ahead and call this meeting Tuesday, April 3rd of the TDC to order. Do a quorum call. Okay. Okay. Is that better? Yeah. Okay. All right, we'll do our quorum call. Gary Brielmeyer.
Present.
Jim Richard.
Present.
Tony Anderson.
Present.
Tim Norris.
here.
Brian Christensen.
Here.
All right. So at this point, we've got an opportunity for any public comments for specific items on the agenda for anyone who cannot stay for the whole length of the meeting on specific topics on the agenda. So if there's any public comment, now's the time. Okay, moving on. Approval of the minutes from the last TDC meeting on February 6th. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, very good. Motion passes. Time for our financial report. Jason Cutshaw.
Good morning, Council. Jason Cutshaw, Director of Administration. Thank you for your time today. Going over our financials, looking at the December monthly report, again, a reminder we collect a month after that month has passed. And so usually those numbers come out within the first week of the following month. So our December numbers, same thing, I didn't have the mic. We were 25% through the year, and we have spent less than 10% in all the categories. Most of the spend is in membership and equipment. For our revenue and reserve report, our anticipated revenue for FY18 is $23 million. We're at $2,742,028. That's 12.29% towards our goal. Our total reserves for the month of December is $41,236,850. For January, our financial report, we are 33% through the year. At that time, we have spent less than 19% spend in all categories. Again, a majority of the spend is in beach maintenance and marketing at this time. Contracts and memberships are the highest percentage, as you usually pay those at the beginning of the year. And then January's revenue and reserve report. Again, our anticipated revenue for FY18 is $23 million. At that time, we were at $3,228,321. That's 14.5% towards the annual goal. And our total reserves at that time is $40,595,770. So a slight dip, but that's just because of the time of the year. Yes, sir.
Jason, on the emerging markets, account 9050.
Yes, sir.
Refresh my memory what that land purchase grant was.
The land purchase grant was funding that we had set aside out of reserves, planning to purchase property. And we initially had set aside a allotted amount, but not all of that was spent. So it rests there for now. So if you see any pro, and then the 9050 should by next year kind of fall off, because that was the 0.5% that we used to draw in 2014,
Right.
whenever we were at 4.5%.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. In our TD report, month over month, December, we collected 651,530. That was an increase by 16.05% from December of last year. And in January, we collected 501,332. That's an increase by 9.51% from last year. And then year over year, we're at 3,328,166. That is 8.84% higher than last year. And we're working on our draft budget now for FY19, so we'll be making appointments to meet with each one of you individually to work on that, starting in May. And we just got our new TDT numbers in yesterday for February. They came in yesterday afternoon. In February, TDT collections were at 626,264. That's 8.73% higher than last year. So we were up in February, so that was a really good sign. So I'll send out more information later today in an email with that, with all the particulars to it, but it was really good news. But with I request the board to accept the financials as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Thanks, Jason.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, moving on to new business. First on the list, we got a request for approval for John Henderson as chair and Philip Poundstone as vice chair of the Management Advisory Committee. Brian?
Good morning, council members. Brian
Morning.
Kellenberger, Director of Beach Operations. That's correct. We've had both our meetings for destination improvement and for beach management. Those committees have selected the chair and vice chair, so we're requesting your approval for those selections today. And so for the beach management, it's John Henderson for chair and Philip Poundstone for vice chair.
We have a motion?
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Thank you, sir.
Great. Motion passes.
Next one is for our Destination Improvement Committee. The committee selected Lee Moore as chair and Rick Talbert as vice chair. And so we're asking for your approval for those selections as well.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Motion passes.
Thank you, sir. The next request is at our previous TDC meeting, we did not have a person to sit in the FDEP chair. So each committee has some seats that are designated for certain industries in our community. And one of them is the FDEP State Park Chair. Patrick Hartsfield from Grayton Beach State Park has been selected to fill that seat. So we're asking for approval from this committee or this council to approve that.
Okay. So moved. We have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion
Thank you, sir.
passes.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Very good. Got another committee appointment. Request approval, Stacy Brady as chair, Lisa Jones as vice chair of the Marketing Communications Advisory Committee. Mike Kerrigan?
Yep, thanks so much.
Morning.
Good morning. Yeah, as you mentioned, we're coming to you for requesting your approval on the chair and vice chair of the Marketing Communications Advisory Committee, as voted on by that committee at our March 27th meeting. And those would be Stacy Brady as chair and Lisa Jones as vice chair.
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Okay.
Motion passes.
Right, thanks. Next one is the another committee, same similar scenario. This one is for the Events, Activities, Arts, and Culture Advisory Committee, also voted on at that March 27th meeting by the committee members. Those would be Sammy Sanchez as chair and Ashton Burks as vice chair.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
All right, thanks. One more bit of committee business. We had resignation of Lori Smith from the Events, Activities, Arts, and Culture Advisory Committee. We're asking for your approval to appoint Chelsea Calhoun to fill that vacancy.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you. So on to request for your approval for our 2019 Event Marketing Support Program. It's all in your packet there. This was all presented to the Events, Activities, Arts, and Culture Committee on March 27th. They approved it. As you see it there, the Marketing and Communications Advisory Committee was also present at that meeting and gave their support in favor of this plan. So it's fairly comprehensive, so I'll give a kind of a quick overview, a little bit of background as well. This program used to be a grant program going back to FY17 and prior to that. For this year, FY18, we changed it to a marketing support program where the TDC was charged with promoting these events rather than reimbursing the events for their marketing programs. What we did over the last couple of months was met with all of our committee members and all of our partners in the events program to get some feedback on what they felt would be helpful, what would make a successful program, and also to communicate some of our goals for the program as well. So following those meetings and all those conversations, we developed a plan that, like I said, was approved by the events committee last week. So I'll share some high-level stuff on that program here with you quickly. Again, this program is designed to support the local events that go on in our community that drive bed tax collections and overnight visitation. So these event partners are able to submit an application for consideration of the Events, Activities, Arts, and Culture Advisory Committee. That committee scores all the applications and determines who is accepted into the program and at what levels of support. This year, what we put together is a program that has 3 distinct categories of support for each of the events that's accepted into the program. The first being a paid media matching grant, where the program used to be a straight reimbursement of media dollars spent by event partners. What we'd like to do going forward is make that a matching program, where we would match dollar for dollar up to a certain threshold of what the event partner is willing to spend on out-of-market advertising that meets TDC approval in advance. The second category is a paid digital and social media marketing campaign that would be funded and administered by Visit South Walton staff on behalf of our event partners that would drive traffic to the events listings on our website, visitsouthwalton.com. So it promotes the events individually, but also gets them to our website where they can learn more about the area, accommodations, and other things going on as well. The third category is a discretionary marketing expense reimbursement program. This is where one piece of feedback we got was this year's program doesn't offer a tremendous amount of flexibility to our event partners that they missed, knowing that they know their events very well. The events on the program are very diverse and they all have different needs. So what this does is sets aside a certain amount of money for some pre-approved marketing related expenses that Visit South Walton will reimburse our event partners for. That can be things like professional services, like getting videography produced. It can be for printing of marketing materials, promotional items, and those sorts of expenses that we can help offset on behalf of our partners that are marketing related. So those are the 3 categories of support that every event that's accepted into the program will receive. If you look at the bottom of that slide there, our events fall into 3 categories: signature and experience events, and those are determined generally by the size and scope of the event and their ability to generate bed tax revenue. The signature events being the larger ones that are multi-day events that have a greater impact on overnight stays. Experience events are more commonly single-day events that have a smaller impact on bed tax collections. And we did create a new category this year for new events. Part of this program is to grow and support new event programming in the community that will drive overnight stays. So those events that apply as a new event will be judged on a slightly different criteria than the other 2 categories. Those dollar amounts there are the maximum support levels that each of those event categories can receive. The way we determine how much each event gets will be by taking the score that they receive from the events committee on their application, converting that to a percentage, and multiplying that by the maximum support level. So if someone is an experience event and gets a 90% score from the events committee, they would receive $18,000 in benefit, split 50% in that first category and 25% in each of the other 2. Any events that score less than 70% on the applications are not accepted into the program and don't receive any support. So like I said, this was presented to the events committee and the marketing committee as well. It was voted on and unanimously approved by the events committee at our last meeting in March. So we bring it for you to your consideration today, that we'd like to bring it on to the BCC if we can get your approval.
One quick question.
Yes, sir.
When the eligibility in the events program, I think it is the sixth bullet point, that's 45 days following the event, or is that, it just says 45?
I apologize. Yeah, 45 days.
Right. I'm not repeating all of that.
That's right. I got it.
Right.
Yeah, that, I apologize. We can get that corrected. That is we'd require a post-event report be completed and delivered to our staff no more than 45 days following the event. Thanks.
Thank you.
And being on the committee, that was very receptive on the way this was designed. So it seems very fair and a very proactive way of
Yeah.
spending our dollars.
Yeah, I think it's a good move to put more control back into the hands of the event organizers. I mean, nobody's more laser focused on the success of an event than the actual planners themselves. And I think it's good to give them a little bit more control, give some of that back.
Motion to approve
Second.
With the thing Gary said.
with the thing that Gary said, 45 days in there.
Yeah, I just, that's the one small detail I had, that's it.
All right.
Can we get the chair to second that, please?
I'll second.
Thank you. For safety.
Do we need a opportunity for public comment, or do we just vote?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
Any public comment on that? Okay.
Oh.
Go ahead. Yeah, please come forward. Yeah.
I'm Jennifer Steele. I'm the Executive Director of the Cultural Arts Alliance of Walton County and an event producer, and I just wanted to support this program. I think that it was a great step for the TDC to take. There was a lot of due diligence that took place with the meeting with all of the event producers, and from my standpoint, I just appreciate that, and I encourage you to pass this.
Jennifer, could you spell your last name for the record?
Steele.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. All right. So we have the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, council members, or good morning, rather, getting ahead of myself here. So I just wanted to give an update on something that's been going on. I had several BCC commissioners approach me in the past few months about the signs at the county line welcoming people into the county. And so I think there has been some discussions in the past from folks in North Walton in particular who aren't happy with these signs, and that they are branded South Walton and not Walton County as far as the logo is concerned. And so the board instructed me to look into seeing what it would take to change these signs. So this is currently what we have, and we have some other options, and these have been presented to the board, and as we walk through them, I'll can we go to the next slide? So here are some other variations. So you can kind of see we have the county logo at the top, welcome to Walton County. And then there's some different variations here. We have the county motto at the bottom. Then we have historic Walton County, established date. And then where the Highlands meet the Gulf, that's one tagline. Can we go to the next slide? And then you can kind of see then there's another version there with Gateway to Paradise. So different versions on that tagline. So what the board instructed me to do at the last BCC meeting was to get with each commissioner individually and kind of see if we can come up with a little bit of a consensus between the 5 of them, and then bring it back to the board, because we had these different messages plus I think 6 or 7 different colors. And so it was between all the choices of colors and slogans, and I mean there was probably like 50 different variations. So the board said, let's see if we can narrow this down a little bit and bring it back to us. So I'm in the process of having those meetings now with the commissioners. I've had 2 of them, and I have 3 more to do. So wanted to give you an update on this and then see if you had any questions of me or if you wanted me to relay anything to the board as we move forward with this process. If you had any questions of the board, I'd be happy to entertain that and be a conduit between this body and the BCC. And I guess if you have any preferences, I can certainly relay that to my conversations with the commissioners.
I got one.
Mm-hmm.
I like option E, welcome to Walton County, established in 1824. I think that's important.
Right.
And Gateway to Paradise.
That's my favorite also.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, that kind of tells you what we
And
are.
believe me, I've looked at these signs too.
Yeah.
All sides.
Yeah. I like the idea of the established date. That's great. I asked myself, I'm not from the area, but I've been here 20 years, and I hear this term paradise used a lot.
Right.
Almost to the point where it gets a little overused.
Yeah.
And I didn't know whether it's something that we really want to adopt, but look, I understand.
It's kind of nice because you could use it for the beaches. Obviously, we have beautiful beaches, but we also have some very unique settings outside of South Walton, with the bay, the rivers, springs. So, I mean, I think it works on multiple levels for the county as a whole. So, I personally like Gateway to Paradise as well, and I've heard that echoed by others.
Okay.
So anyway, so just wanted to give an update on that, and I'll certainly relay your thoughts to the board as I meet with them.
Would this be countywide, or would there be a different sign maybe when you get over the bridge into South Walton?
Well, right now, this would take the place of all the county signs coming into the county. And so I was thinking we might want to look in the future if we want to have additional signs branding South Walton and the beaches. Maybe as you get in half a mile, quarter mile into the county, maybe we have another message sign. That's something we'll have to have another conversation about, but because we could certainly do those coming in on 98, both east and west, and then coming down on 331. So we can certainly have a conversation
Just
about
at the
that.
county lines.
Just at the county line?
Yeah,
Well, that being said, then, I think it would be important to be consistent with the message, and yes, it is paradise, we all know that.
Right.
However, I believe the pride, preservation, conservation is the motto, right?
it is correct.
There ought to be a consistency throughout,
Yeah.
incorporating the entire county, not just the south.
Well, this message that we were just discussing, the Gateway to Paradise, I mean, that would be used on the signs all throughout the county, north and south. So what we were just discussing with Jim was perhaps having an additional sign that might be branded South Walton, if we choose to do that in the future. Right now, there's a lot of construction going on 98 over in the west. So I think to do anything over there right now is not a good move. But obviously, we have some stuff going on over on the east end as well. We're looking at doing some possible landscaping in the next year. So I just say we kind of hold off for the time being if we want to add an additional sign.
It's definitely a gateway to paradise, but you gotta go through hell to get here.
Yeah.
It's tough, pardon the language.
So the most fundamental change, though, is going from South Walton to Walton, correct?
Correct.
Now,
Well, and that, I mean, when you look at the sign, so can we go back to the current sign? Yeah. Okay, so here, I mean, we say, welcome to Walton County. I mean, that's the primary message on that sign when you look at it,
Okay.
and that won't change. Obviously, what will change is the logo at the top, take that branding off with South Walton messaging, and then the home to South Walton beaches, that would kind of be replaced with that, Gateway to Paradise message.
okay. Got it. So will you have these up at the north, when people cross in from Alabama
Yep,
straight into?
we have,
Okay.
I can give you a rundown, I believe there's 9 locations. Let's see if I have that in here. I don't know if I put it in this binder. Too many binders. Yeah, I must have left that in my BCC binder, but
That's
it's Highway 98, both east and west.
Right.
331 up north, Highway 20, Highway 90. Let's see, that's 1, 2, 3, 4,
83.
5, 6. I think there's 3 more. 83.
Okay, all right.
So, but this message would be changed on all the signs coming into the county.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jay. All right. Next, we got a request, a recommendation to the BCC to approve a request for funds from the TDC to support the Cultural Arts Alliance Underwater Museum of Art. And Jennifer Steele is going to talk about that.
I believe I need to recuse myself from this vote. Am I allowed to speak on the subject as long as I recuse myself from the vote?
Hey, just real quick, we're having a technical problem. I think we need to pause for a moment just so Lisa can reset something, if y'all don't mind.
If we could add, Mr. Chairman, if we just ask for a 5-minute recess until we get that back online, that way no activity occurs outside of the line.
Sure. Yep.
We can just call in recess, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. 5-minute recess.
Thank you, sir. Some of this is different. Must be a little bit.
I'd like to know how you tend to undersea party. I guess they're gonna provide you some tanks. Unless you can hold your breath for a little while.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Originally, I was, not that I was against it, but it was like,
We'll vote on it now. Chair back up.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
It's a yes, but and all right,
and not only that.
I've been placed in this situation, and I'm like, made a fool of myself several times. I forgot from what I was I was fixing to find the guy and the chassis.
One that's really amazing. Just like that, but it's
Moving right along,
Yeah.
really pretty.
I hate that about Ronnie. I like Ronnie. He was such a good guy.
He was a good asset. He turned out to be a very, very good commissioner.
I know the name, but I've never met him.
He worked at the hospital for a while. He actually did some mosquito control in the field force for a while. And he was determined to become a commissioner, mosquito commissioner. I think he tried 3 times. His 3rd time he finally made it. Yeah, you see the name from there. Yeah. So persistence pays, but unfortunately, what a freak accident.
No, we're fishing. Totally fishing.
He went in, he had a block carotid, 95% block.
He's caught one.
Doctor went in and took it out.
It's already
And took him up to the room.
He's on a mission.
And he was struggling a little bit with cough. it felt like he was chewing on cotton.
Got to sign anything?
So, he got settled in, his wife got him into the room okay, and he said, go and get some rest. And I talked to her later. 2 hours later, she was calling, came back. His neck is swollen up,
Oh, my God.
and it cut off his ear.
Wow.
And that was 45 minutes later.
We good to go? Okay. All right, back in session then.
And Mr. Chairman, to address the issue with Mr. Shaw has brought up he serves as board member of one of the two entities that's jointly submitting here. Mr. Richard is not a paid employee, nor does he receive compensation from this. In light of those facts, I'm prepared to instruct Mr. Richard that as long as that disclosure is on the record, which it should now be based on my representation, that he is not under an actual voting conflict of interest in this scenario on this issue. So he is welcome to both speak and vote on this issue at this time.
Thank you.
Hello, again, I'm Jennifer Steele, Executive Director of the Cultural Arts Alliance.
I'm Allison Wiki, the president of the Cultural Arts Alliance Board of Directors.
Very good. Welcome.
You'll have to talk a little louder, I'm a little bit deaf.
Okay. We are here to request support for the Underwater Museum of Art, which is a collaborative project between the Cultural Arts Alliance and the South Walton Artificial Reef Association. We're calling it UMA for short. The goal of UMA is to raise awareness of South Walton's marine resources through art. One of our goals as the CAA is to find solutions to community issues, to raise awareness and to educate through the arts, and this is one of those projects that does that. This will be the first dedicated underwater sculpture museum in the United States, and one of the benefits of this partnership is that SWARA, obviously, as you know, as a supporter of that project, we are able to use their existing permitting and dedicated acre off of the coast of Brayton Beach. Our goal is for this to be an annual project. Obviously, this year will be an indicator if that's going to be possible, but we will work with national and international artists who will be invited to submit their work for consideration for this permanent exhibit. The sculptures are created above ground and then shipped. The majority of them will be shipped to South Walton, where we will have an event to reveal them, and then they will be transported to the deployment site where they're attached to custom bases.
So these will be, nothing's really hurricane-proof, but these will be pretty much like the SWARA reefs now, that they're fairly secured?
Exactly, yes. The bases, I believe, are 3,500 pounds, and they're made of clean concrete, and they will be created, they'll be custom created to each piece, so there's no like one size fits all, so that the pedestal will accommodate the dimensions and the weight of each piece.
Is this area where you're creating, proposing to create this, this museum, is that what you call it, a museum?
Yes, museum.
Is it already a popular diving spot or location? Is it kind of known as a place where, if you are going to go do some diving, you might go here?
I cannot speak to that specifically. I know that there are 9 patches there that are dedicated for artificial reefs, so I believe that the goal is that it will be, and this will be a part of that.
Okay.
And Mr. Richard may be.
Yeah, I can speak to that. This is a new project. We just received the NERDA and Restore Act money, and so the first deployment, there are 4 snorkel reefs that are fully deployed. There are 9 fish dive reefs. This is one of those 40-acre patches of a fish dive reef, and the way we broke the 40-acre patches into 9 quadrants. And so the money allowed us to deploy 1/9 of each one of those 40-acre patches. This project will, year after year, deploy 1 more quadrant of this one Grayton Beach reef site. So it is new, but it's,
Yeah.
this is such a, I can't say enough about this project, of course.
Yeah, it's about to be on the map.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
part of the reason for creating or making the snorkel reefs in the shapes of sea life is to get national attention. And I'm sure that you'll see this project get international attention because it's so unique and amazing, nothing less.
We have already had international press interest through National Geographic, The Guardian UK, Virgin Australia, and we're conducting interviews all the time with press who are excited about this project.
Jennifer, now, how will you get there? From the beach, from, you know, is there a dive boat somewhere around the area? Because it's gonna be hard, it's gonna be a long trip by boat.
It's less than a mile out, so if you were to go by yourself, if you were a free diver or a scuba diver, you could either hire a boat or take your boat out. There could be like the fishing charters that go right off of Grayton Beach. That could be another opportunity for them to go right off the beach out to the patch to dive.
And if I may, this will be a reason for boats to come out of Destin and bring divers and recreational activity to South Walton from Destin.
We've seen,
So unique.
Yeah, we've seen, already we have seen turtles and manta rays on them. No cobia, that's a problem. No, I'm just kidding. There's been some,
No,
there's
I
been
saw
manta
one.
rays and turtles on them.
Cobia really like
Yeah.
art.
Yes.
Yes.
Are
Good.
we at all worried about predators, more predators in the area? Just a thought, I'm just,
Let me tell you, they're already there.
They're
and-
there.
And, yeah, they're,
it's not gonna be an increase though, you don't think?
no,
Okay.
no, not at all. And yeah, they actually help the environment, so.
And if you are a diver and go to Mexico Beach or to any of the other sites, there are predators everywhere that we live in water and not in the water as well. But it's likely they're as afraid of you as you are of them.
I doubt that.
Maybe.
When this came up the first time, I shared a story where I did some diving back in my early 20s, and we took a dive trip for 10 days down to the Florida Keys. And one thing that really impressed upon me was the Penacamp underwater park. I believe it's near Key Largo, and it was just really, very memorable. And I believe it's quite an attraction that draws a lot of people year after year. So.
That's the one with Jesus Christ, I believe, right?
Yeah,
His hands on it. It's
lot
beautiful.
of different sculptures that you can swim in and out of. It's almost like jungle gyms and just a lot of really cool stuff is
It
what I
provides
remember.
a perspective that you aren't gonna see anywhere else in your daily life. Like, you have to go here and see this, and when you see
Yeah.
it, like you're saying, it's so memorable. So it's just, adding a layer of sophistication to the area that, we're already rolling towards with having art and, a lot of architectural draw, but this just is going to bring another layer to that.
When are we looking at deployment of it?
We're
Just
looking
out of
at
curiosity.
This summer.
This summer?
June or
Oh,
July
okay.
2018, yes. We will be kind of piggybacking on one of SWAR's already scheduled deployments to help with those costs.
Okay.
Yeah, this grant will facilitate the deployment. That's where the money will go. We're doing a fundraiser in conjunction with the CAAs, with Art Week, to bring awareness, and there'll be a huge media portion of that. We expect a tremendous amount of people from across the country to come and report on this. So for that matter, it pairs perfectly with the TDC's mission of bringing new people to the area and creating awareness for the area. And it will be piggybacked with another deployment scheduled for SWARA in the fall, or in the summer.
More questions,
Sure.
Mr. Chair. So these are going to They're gonna look like this. Allison, I'm waiting to see yours.
I know, I'm going to
Yeah.
Montgomery
So
tomorrow
I'm
to meet with
close,
my
I'm trying to
fabricators.
figure out
I'm
what
so
that's gonna
excited to
look
put my
like.
little picture
But,
in there.
they're gonna turn into reefs. I guess they're gonna be there for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And so then as Jim says, you're gonna start another quadrant and you're gonna put something else in there like, similar, or not similar, but some more art.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, cool.
It will be a swimmable museum.
All right.
And the sculptures, a few of them, at least two, hopefully more, will be at the fundraiser. And as soon as we have them locally and have photos of them, you'll get a better idea of the actual visual feel of them. They're actually really pretty tall, and once they're on their bases, some of them will be 12 feet tall.
Mr. Chair, also, now, you said free diver. Does that mean they're gonna swim from the beach out there to that location?
It actually means from the surface of the water down, so there's
Yeah.
people that can hold their breath for a
But
really
no
long
breathing
time.
apparatus.
Oh, free diving, that kind of,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
But people might swim out there.
Yeah, you never know. There's,
Paddleboarding, kayaking.
there's some crazy people out there. Okay,
Mhm.
yeah.
And so can we, so what exactly is the ask in terms of the level of funds that,
So we have secured funding through the National Endowment for the Arts, Visit Florida, and the Alice Foundation for this first deployment. And that totals $25,000. And we are asking for a match from the TDC of $25,000. Additionally, we will be raising funds through sponsorships of the sculptures. So each individual sculpture will be able to be sponsored in perpetuity. Once it goes down into the water, that, that sponsor it owns that piece. So that's what we're requesting for this 2018 deployment, so that we can make sure that it happens in June or July.
so if this were to get approved based on the match from the National Endowment along with our match, this would actually launch the project, you're saying?
Correct.
We're not waiting on a bunch of other commitments
No.
elsewhere? Okay, all right, thank you.
I would like to make.
We have a motion, go ahead.
Second.
Gary?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Would y'all keep updating us on what's going on?
Okay, sorry.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, would y'all keep updating us what's going on with it?
Absolutely,
It's-
yes.
It's very, very cool. I don't know, that's not a professional word. I
That's
probably-
right,
It
it is
cool.
cool.
Sorry, if there's any public comment, please come forth. No one? Okay, we'll vote again. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
So much.
Very good. All right.
Good job.
It is very cool, Rich.
It really is.
Gary, excuse me. It is very cool.
Yeah, it's pretty neat, yeah.
Great. Next, we've got, looks like Eric Ferrier from Windswept Dunes to discuss marketing efforts.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
Everybody doing all right today?
Good.
Thank you.
Appreciate, first off, the opportunity to come and to just ask this question, present this case, if you will. Basically, what I'm asking is there is a 2% tourist development tax, bed tax, if you will, for those South Walton vacation rentals. And there are marketing funds that are allocated from that to market area golf courses specifically, obviously, is what I'm looking at. And I apologize. My name is Eric Ferrier, and I'm from Windswept Dunes Golf Club. I'm the PGA head golf professional there in Freeport. So the 2% bed tax is collected from the South Walton beds, as you all know, and marketing funds are used from that to market area attractions, obviously, to get people in those beds. And we had studied the statutes. I was in contact with Michael and Jason and also Jay regarding questions about this, and also contacted Mr. Adkisson just with a question regarding the statute itself. If anything in the statute itself of this bed tax precluded Windswept Dunes from being included, and of course the answer was no. It was not in the statute itself. It is a policy of the TDC, so it's open to your discretion as far as that goes. So I'm just here simply to present a case with a few points that would perhaps give you the idea of why I think we should be included, and then certainly it will be up to you, and I would appreciate any consideration in the matter. Any questions before I proceed?
Go ahead.
First point, the state program, the TODS program, Tourist Directional Signs, we've been approved for that. One of the prerequisites for that program is to have 51% or more of your income coming from outside of the immediate area. Now, all of you have been in Walton County for a long time, I'm sure, as I have, and you know that Freeport is a pretty small community, so it's easy to see that a lot of our income comes from outside of that area. As a matter of fact, I interact with customers every day at the golf course. I oversee the golf operation, so I'm there in the shop just about every day. And in talking to individuals as they come in, I like to get an idea of where they're from, how they've heard about us, all this stuff, and they would iterate onto me that a lot of the folks that come and play there are staying in South Walton. They're staying south of the bay. In fact, the majority of our play comes from, the corridor from Panama City Beach, Inlet Beach, that 30A corridor, and on into Destin. So this tourist area down here is the vast majority of our rounds of golf. Matter of fact, the second part, the point that I wanted to make was from 2017 to present, 58% of our rounds are non-local rounds. So that is 58% of all of our golf rounds are tourist rounds. Now I want to also make sure that I'm clear on something. Windswept Dunes considers a local resident anyone who has a Florida driver's license that lives basically from Pensacola to Quincy. So you have Holmes County, Washington County, Walton County, Okaloosa County, and even Santa Rosa County. If anyone has a Florida driver's license, they come in, we give them a local rate, which is it's a discounted rate. Now, why I bring that up is because when I say 58% of our rounds are non-locals, the thought immediately comes to your mind, well, that's 42% that are local. But the vast majority of those, probably 90% of that 42%, are still outside of Freeport. They are South Walton, Destin. And again, we get a few from Pensacola. We get a few from over further in Bay County. But the vast majority of ours comes down that corridor that I just mentioned, south of the bay for us. The third point is that I have individuals, when I talk to them and I interact with them, we have individuals that come in and they tell me that they come and they stay in Santa Rosa Beach, or they stay in Grayton Beach, or they stay in Rosemary, and they play Windswept Dunes exclusively. They come here to play our golf course. Not everybody. And I will make sure that I'm clear on that. It is not even the majority. But I had one in the last couple of weeks, and we just have them every so often. They'll tell us, look, we come down here and we stay here, and you're the only golf course we play. And obviously that isn't, that's a proud statement from us, but it isn't an arrogant statement by any means. We just know that we have a good product, and we're happy that folks enjoy it. But basically, we also have, I've been in marketing, I guess, for about 12 years. I've been in Windswept since 2004 when we opened, and I've been marketing the golf course since about 2006. So I have a little bit of experience in that, and my experience in marketing is the more amenities offered, the better the marketing strategy. The better quality the amenities offered, the better the marketing strategy. As we just heard in the ladies that presented their case of a very very interesting and exclusive idea, those are really good for tourism. So I just wanted to give you an example. In Hilton Head Island, South Carolina, that is defined as a 69 square mile piece of property out there in the Atlantic, and it is defined as the island itself. But when I would go to the Hilton Head Island website, the tourism website, they market golf courses proximal to the island, but not necessarily included in the borders of the island. And the reason why they do this is the more amenities offered, the more folks are coming there to that area. Now, they're staying on the island, aren't they, on those beautiful resorts, but they might mosey over and they might play another golf course. The more the merrier as far as that goes. The final thing I just wanted to present is, speaking of the quality of the amenity. I've got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got 4 of the main review websites like TripAdvisor, Google, Yelp, and Facebook. Let's see, Google rates us 4.6. 70% of Google rates us 5 stars. 70% of all the reviews on Google of that 4.6 gives us 5 stars. TripAdvisor, 4.5. 69% of the TripAdvisor reviews rate us as excellent. Yelp, 4.5. 58% of Yelp reviewers rate us as 5 stars. And Facebook, we are 4.6. 69% of Facebook users rate us as 5 stars. TripSavvy did an article on golf courses in the area, and it listed top 10, and this is Walton and Okaloosa counties. And Windswept Dunes was ranked number 1 above every other Walton and every other Okaloosa County golf course down here. They rated us number 1. Now it's just the opinion of that reviewer, and that's I'm not trying to say it isn't, but that is the opinion of a reviewer. And this man has a voice, and a lot of people read that information. Golf Magazine ranked us number 5 in the country in upscale new public golf courses in 2005, 1 year after we opened. The point that I'm trying to make is gentlemen, we would be would not be a liability at all to inclusion in the marketing funds of South Walton. We would be a good thing. We would be something that would be beneficial to you as we are to them. We have several resorts in South Walton, Newman Daily, Ocean Reef, various others that we partner with, and we are an amenity program for them. Sandcastle Escapes just was purchased by Southern Vacation Rentals, but Sandcastle Escapes for several years now, we have been their exclusive golf partner. So everybody that comes and stays in their rentals in South Walton plays Windswept Dunes. I just think that it would be beneficial to both of us if we could be included. And again, my ask is not for anything specific. My ask is simply to be included in the marketing of golf courses for South Walton. Thank you so very much for your time. Can I answer any questions for anyone?
Can I ask you about Windswept Dunes, the community itself, and do you get, is that a rental community? In other words, if you own a house there, can you put that on short-term rental and bring people in for week stays?
Windswept Dunes, each individual house in there, each property is individually owned. There are individuals in there that do rent them, but I don't know of anyone in there that rents it short-term.
Okay.
Only long-term rentals, as far as I know.
Mr. Chair. Eric, how many rounds a day do you play?
In 2017, we did 21,000.
21,000.
Yes, sir. So, it really does vary with the season.
Yeah.
February, we've done as many this year as 195 rounds a day. And on slow days, there might be, because of weather, we might do 10 or 0 because of rain. Usually for us, January through July is much more rounds per day, and then August through December, it slows down significantly.
You know, being a golfer, I've played there. It's a nice course.
I appreciate
You got a great course. And I do know I have clients that come in town, and a lot of snowbirds play up there.
Yes, sir.
That's a big place for them to play. And another one of the reasons is it's affordable.
Yes, sir.
You know, you make it to where it's you can get many more rounds out of their dollar. So that's a good thing. You know, being on the north side of the bay, you know, the tax dollars are the bed tax, heads and beds, that sort of thing. I see your relationship to what we have and where they go to play golf. You know, I'm kind of torn between, you know, we've got other golf courses. They do the same thing you do.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't really, they pay for theirs and or they get a benefit out of it. Not the same, but biophilia. We attempted to do something with them in the past, but it really didn't draw the numbers that they needed to have to justify us providing some source of funding. Therefore, you know, I don't, you know, it's just, there's a North Walton committee. If you just want some advertising, we have a North Walton Events Committee, and I would think that would probably, you know, put a little proposal in front of them, and they've got some money to provide to something of that sort. I think that'd be a great idea.
Yes, sir. I appreciate that. I'll take that into consideration. I know the owners of Windswept Dunes were specifically looking for inclusion in South Walton simply because of the benefit that we do bring and the verifiable evidence that we are already an amenity for South Walton.
Right.
And we would just like to be included in the advertising, marketing aspects.
And Jay, correct me if I'm wrong, is there an initiative underway there's discussions taking place about a potential TDT in the north end of the county, correct?
That is correct. I've had conversations with the board, and we are exploring that option for a North Walton TDT. And so I've been having some conversations with elected officials north of the bay, and so that is ongoing. So that would require a referendum of the voters of North Walton, so we're not quite sure where that will go. But it is something we're working on. And if, in fact, that were to go through, I think that that would be an opportunity where we perhaps could cross-promote each other in the north and the south. I think we need to be careful with our dollars, and I can let Clay maybe elaborate a little bit on this more so than I can, but just the dollars being spent down here where they're collected versus up north. So, Clay, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
I can, Jay. This has been, since I've been with the TDC now, and I guess we're coming up on 9 years now, there's always been a concern for the TDC from a policy perspective of while the statute doesn't impose a heads and beds requirement on any dollar spent should result in heads and beds, that has been this TDC's historic model for determining any expenditure. In 2014, we asked the question to the Florida Attorney General, and the question that we actually posed to them was, were we authorized under Section 5A3, which is the one that deals with promotion of tourism for activities, venues, events, services, could we promote and market events held in the county but outside the sub-county district? The Attorney General advised us that we were not prohibited against that we could, in fact, use money to market events, activities, services, as long as it promotes tourism in this state, even if it's outside of our district. So legally, you're not prohibited to. But as I advised the gentleman when they inquired through TDC staff, the legal prohibition has never been what has stopped the TDC from expending money in this kind of scenario. It's a policy determination. And ultimately, this board is tasked by statute to determine that the monies we expend are properly expended within the mission of our TDC. Our TDC's mission is something that you and the Board of County Commissioners generally decide on. So can I tell you you're legally prohibited from doing so? No. However, I cannot tell you whether or not you should or should not find something within the TDC's mission and the public policy that you and the Board of the County Commissioners ultimately impose here. To the extent that this board has previously determined on a number of occasions, and I probably would say it's upwards of a dozen instances, and Mr. Norris named two very notable ones, but at least a dozen that I can recall, instances where this board has determined that expenditures outside the sub-county district were not an acceptable use of money for policy reasons. Those have been pretty consistent across the board in that situation. And I would note, obviously, we're not blanketly allowed to spend money north of the bay either. There's a list of items we cannot expend money on. This is not one of them, but there's an entire list of items including convention centers, sports stadiums, sports arenas, coliseums, auditoriums, aquariums, and museums that must be in the sub-county taxing district. If you spend money on any of those items, they've got to be in South Walton, can't be out of South Walton. And a lot of areas around the state have learned that the hard way when they've tried to promote a sports stadium or a new convention center outside of their area. So I defer to you. Legally, if you choose to do it, you're not going to be in trouble. But you're going to need to change policy or espouse policy to allow it. And my advice whenever it comes to policy is do not set policy on a case-by-case basis, set policy on a broad basis. Otherwise, you're going to run into a potential discriminatory situation the next time somebody from North Walton comes and says, please include me. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Sure.
I think you confused me enough.
That's usually what I do when I have to give those opinions.
Eric and I are friends, and it's a beautiful golf course. if it was an easy answer for us to do this, I would recommend we do it. As Mr. Adkisson says so eloquently, that it's not an easy thing for us to do. If we're gonna do this, we have to change the whole policy, and that may come up at a time. I mean, there's going to be other things in North Walton that, I mean, the canoe trail, for example, you know, do we promote that? So my suggestion is that we start looking at maybe, you know, have whatever appropriate committee or Jay and his staff, maybe we do need to change policy down the road, you know, but at this present time, you know, to change policy, we would have to research it first with our council to make sure what we're doing is legal. Then as a group, we first probably have to take it before some committees, and then as a group of this board, we would have to approve that, and then it would go to the BCC for approval. So as of right now, our hands are tied. As a golfer, and as an avid golfer that doesn't get to play nearly as much as I want, when I go on vacation, I want to play every golf course in the area. And if it's a 12-mile drive to where Eric is, so what? It's just as far to my office, you know? So I see Eric's point, and it is a great golf course. And Eric and his staff has done a great job. So, you know, wait till us to figure out what we can and can't do, and maybe come back at a later date if we do make some changes, is what I would suggest.
Okay. So further steps for me as far as that goes, do I just wait to see? I would, if you guys would consider it, please, because I go ahead and tell you the owners, they want to continue, and they're continuing to push me to do what I can to get this done. So if I can make the request, please consider it and keep me updated, or I can contact you. I don't know how that works, but I'll be willing to do whatever I need to.
Well, I would suggest, as Tim did, that you contact the North Walton Event Committee. That would be my first choice for you.
Okay.
And Jay, didn't we have an off the beach initiative at one point where we were looking at the rivers and byways?
That Mr. Richard, that's one of those probably dozen instances that falls in those. We've gone back and forth on those paddle and canoe trails and what level of funding and ecotourism funding we could get into, and different councils at different times have viewed that issue slightly differently. I believe Commissioner Anderson's point, the closest we have to that now, the off the beach, would be the North Walton TDC Events Committee, which does receive monies to allocate towards events north of the bay. That's one of those areas that was funded post 2014 Attorney General opinion. If I might make a recommendation to help along with that, certainly if you appear before that committee, like our events committee here, we're going to require actual data to support that. Mr. Norris brought up the Biophilia Center, and that's one thing I just mentioned to Mr. Tusa. Obviously, when we expended money with the Biophilia Center, we required detailed tracking logs of where people who visited there came from so we could actually review that data. The events committee is going to require that. So to the instance that we're going to look at this as an individual case, that's an opportunity to do so without changing policy. But it also gives our staff an opportunity to get the requisite data sets to look at. And perhaps that allows the staff to bring this back to you in a future strategic planning or budget session in looking at expanding the greater area. When we looked at paddle and canoe trails, we had a Wayfinder app. We had a lot of tracking data that we could put together before we made firm commitments of these dollars. And so I will say right now, my concern would be on any expenditure that we simply don't have the qualitative analysis for our staff to do that data. And that's why I was just asking Mr. Tusa, have we seen reports? Have we seen analysis to base this on? If staff hasn't, there's no way staff can come to you at the committee level or this level and say, do it. Doesn't mean that it might not get there one day, as Commissioner Anderson said, but I think we've got to see that, and starting at that committee level probably gives the best opportunity. That would be the closest to what you're discussing, Mr. Shaw.
You know, and it sounds to me also just that the purpose of that committee, North Walton TDC Events Committee, doesn't that suggest that if there were an event, let's say at Windswept Dunes, that you were promoting, then you could perhaps get approved for some level of funding. But if it's just blanket marketing in general to create awareness of the golf course, maybe not, right? I'm just trying to manage expectations for Eric here.
Go ahead, Tim.
Jay,
Just
this is for you.
okay.
Are we not designing a booklet like the restaurant one that, yeah, this one right here, this is a golf course. Well, here's some golf courses here. Is there not a way that we can maybe?
Well, there is. I was just going to make a suggestion if I could. We actually have a meeting this afternoon internally where we're going to start looking at strategic planning. So, and we'd actually like to get the council involved in that soon, once we kind of get ourselves moved far enough along. So I say, why don't we defer this to a strategic planning session, and we can discuss it then in greater length and detail, and see how we might want to explore the option of including North Walton entities into a South Walton marketing program.
Because I would recommend, if it's all possible, that if it's a golf guide, that it's Walton County, we put all Walton counties in there instead of Bay County and Okaloosa. Just put all the Walton golf courses in there, and that should suffice, I would think.
So
that would take care of that.
Yeah. So I think those are some of the things that we can talk about in that
Yeah.
strategic planning session. We also have a new golf guide that we just produced, so perhaps when we go to reprint that soon, we could include them in there. So those are the type of things I think we can have a conversation about, and how we can include North Walton into the mix.
As a golfer, that's what we do. We go play different golf courses during the week, so this would be, you know, this is a long golf course. This sucker's a challenge, but it is forgiving, it's wide, so that's a good thing. But anyway, that's a suggestion anyway.
At one time, it was, correct me if I'm wrong, at one time, it was the longest golf course in the state of Florida from the tips.
Yes, sir. It was. You know, I went to my final level of PGA in Fort St. Lucie, and I had to do a presentation, and the instructor of the presentation actually told me, he's like, "Oh, you're from Windswept." It's like, "Yeah." He said, "We built a tee to beat you guys in Palm Harbor down there at the conservatory." And I said, "That's okay, we got room." So we're actually working on another tee now. So that's also, the longest course in Florida is in Walton County.
Yeah.
Or it will be. We're the second right now, but we'll get that back very soon. So that's a good marketing strategy.
Yeah.
Sure.
For serious golfers, not me.
You don't have to play back there, trust me.
No.
And I don't.
All right.
Thank you, Eric.
Thanks,
Okay.
Eric.
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate the consideration.
Okay,
Thank you.
so no motion required here. Okay, very good. All right, next on the agenda, got Mike Lawrence with Destametrics Software.
Morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
See if this works. There we go. Perfect. Thank you very much. Today, what I wanted to do is, I've been asked to present to you a potential program that Jay and Mike and team are looking at for inclusion into the strategic planning process. So this is no specific ask, just an introduction to the program, what it does, what value it can bring to South Walton. So we provide a destination research lodging program. That program itself, what does it do? A destination lodging research program incorporates data that is generated from lodging providers in your location to help identify metrics by which both your DMO as well as the participating properties can make better marketing and financial decisions. What we do is we generate a family of reports that are utilized by both the DMO and the contributing properties to manage that entire process. I'll go through a few of those here as the presentation continues. Fundamentally, what we're doing is we are targeting hotels, non-traditional hotels, condo properties, as well as we have a new product that can manage the RBO inventory as well and give you insight into that information. It was ironic, the discussion with Mr. Atkinson about data, and I would agree, data is king. And without that data on whatever you're interested in managing, without that data, you're just making general assumptions. So with that, let me tell you that this is not a program that is new. As a matter of fact, we have a number of locations up and down this coast specifically that are utilizing a destination lodging research program, including Panama City Beach, Okaloosa County, Escambia County, and the Alabama Gulf Shores are all utilizing a program today. Included in that list, we also have other sun and fun destinations, including Hilton Head, Charleston, Kissimmee, Florida Keys, all utilize this program as well. And in addition, this program was originally developed for the mountain properties. So as you'll see, we basically, if any of you have strapped a board or a pair of skis on your feet, more than likely you have probably been part of one of these destinations that is managed by a destination research lodging program today. So what makes us unique in terms of the data that we can provide for you? Fundamentally, through this list, the most important part of it is that we provide forward-looking data. Okay? So not just the look back to see how we did last year, how we did last month. We're also able to predict the future. So we're looking at future bookings, we're looking at current run rate, and we allow the DMOs or the contributing properties, now they manage their own process, but fundamentally allowing the DMOs to take a look forward and see how they're doing for future inventory and future occupancies, including ADR. So our program is a little bit different than some that you may be aware of that really only look backwards and are only focused on chain hotels. We take a look at your entire inventory and give you, Jay and Mike, a snapshot into exactly what is happening in your destination. So what type of information do we actually provide? Again, provide a number of reports. I've got some slides here that honestly are eye chart slides, so I'm not going to go into these individually, but I do just want to point out some key components of this. We first start with a transient inventory study where we evaluate all of your inventory that should be included to give you that view of the health of your destination. Since we actually, Decimetrics Entopia was involved with the Visit Florida inventory study 2 years ago, so we actually performed that, if any of you familiar with that. We've got a leg up on your inventory currently. We need to update that information so that we understand the target and what the demographics of your location look like. And then once we get that information and bring those participating properties on board, we're able to identify data relating to, so this, for example, is our Reservation Activity Outlook report that simply provides a monthly report, last year versus this year, not just 6 months backwards, but also you'll see with those gray charts, looking forward as well. So that allows your organization to take a look and say, we're either running ahead, that's great, whatever we're doing well, or we're running behind. We need to accelerate our marketing programs, and we need to fill those beds coming up in the next X months. We even provide that information on a daily basis. So we can get as granular as you would like to. For example, you may be able to see, since there's a shift in the spring break calendars, you've got to fill beds in a different manner today than you did last year. You can look at all that information and provide that to your constituent properties as well as to Jay and Mike to continue to move that process forward and fill the beds. In addition, as Clay had mentioned, that we also provide the ability for you to understand where your guests are coming from. So we can do what's called a guest profiler report, where we look at your entire population of your guests. We understand where they're coming from, allowing Mike and Jay to target those areas to get the most success, the most bang for your buck, and be able to provide, again, more heads in the beds. In addition, all that information is available online through a portal. Everyone who's a member of the program can have access to that information. And then in addition, all that I've talked about was available to both the destination marketing organization as well as the contributing properties. The benefit for the contributing properties is that they can actually provide comparisons to how they're doing, both versus the destination as a whole, as well as to individual properties as well. So that's where the value lies, is a couple of different ways. From a DMO perspective, the value lies in the ability to get both historical but also forward-looking data that you can utilize to actually manage your marketing dollars better and more effectively. In addition, as I said, we do have a new product that's come out. We're now currently implementing it down in Panama City Beach. That's our RBO inventory solution set. So there is the ability with an RBO solution, which identifies from Airbnb, VRBO, et cetera, identifies those properties to be able to help fund through missing tax revenue. So Panama City Beach is looking forward to this new adder to their program to actually help fund not just the RBO program, but the entire program. So that's pretty exciting. Again, the value to the properties, because you're going to go to them and ask for them to participate. So we've been in some pretty significant conversations, for example, with Mark Hodgson down at Destin, Sandestin, and where they add the value is that they can actually look at their comparison of their performance, not just against the DMO, as I said, but they can pick a set of property comparison reports. So they can pick a set of representative properties. Everything is anonymous, so you never know who's the companies that you're comparing to, but you will be able to get that data so that if you come in and you say, hey, we're up 12%, we're up 8.7%, or whatever the data is, for your individual property to know that's good, you need to know how it compares to how everybody else is doing. Because if you're doing a 10% versus 8.7%, you're probably doing pretty well. But if you're doing 6% versus 8.7%, you're probably running behind where everybody else is, right? So this provides the opportunity for those properties to truly understand their performance based on not just their own parochial internal view, but their view as for the properties, for the destination as a whole. So here's one complaint that you're going to get as part of this program, is that every property wants to know, is their data truly anonymous, right? How secure is their data? Because no one wants somebody to know their specifics. We provide contractual assurances that all the data that we generate from those properties is confidential and anonymous. And all that data that is presented back is completely anonymous. So there's no way to tell who those properties are. There's no way to extract that data for anybody. It's all fully anonymous. And thus far, with our almost 40 destinations throughout America, we've never had one problem with security, nor have we had any complaints from our contributing properties. So, did I make my 10 minutes? That was pretty good, wasn't it?
I'll start with a couple questions.
Sure.
So in these 40 other markets where you're already present, what's the participation level like? Because obviously the more, if participation is lacking, you're not going to get a very reliable or relevant type of report.
Yeah, it's actually, it is not, we don't need 100% participation, because the underlying algorithms and the fancy math that we use utilizes statistical evaluation. So what we need to do when we do that transient inventory study, that allows us to understand the makeup. So here's how many condo hotels we have, here's vacation rentals, here's hotels, et cetera, we need about 25 to 40% of that inventory, of that level of inventory, that fundamentally matches that view, and then our math works. So we don't need to get 100% participation, we just need to get a representative participation.
Okay. And so this operates a lot like the STAR report, it sounds like. However,
If you know the STAR reports, we're the STAR people for non-chain hotels.
also with a look forward, you're saying.
Correct, exactly.
So you could compare your own property to a comp set, you know, in terms of their forward bookings, and see how they're doing or what their upcoming business looks like.
Correct.
In a pool, so it's confidential.
And it's a little bit ironic is that in almost every one of those destinations, many of the chain hotels who contribute to the STAR reports already are contributing to us as well because they want that forward-looking view.
And so can the comp set that, say, Sandestin Resort chooses, can it also include hotels as well as non-hotels?
It could include any participating resort that we have in our entire database.
But they have to be participating, so you can't reach out to STAR and start pulling all, and
Correct.
contracting with STAR to pull hotel data.
No,
You need the,
correct.
okay.
It would need to come into our, but what's ironic, we actually have a gentleman in Telluride who runs a property there is convinced that the most direct correlation of his success in the winter is a summer property in Hilton. So he has asked the comparison to be done to a property, and we don't agree with that evaluation, but he swears by it, so that's what he wants to compare himself to.
Okay. How long have you been in business?
About 20 years.
20 years, okay.
Other questions? Really, the purpose of this was just simply to introduce you to the program and know that we're in discussions with Jay and Mike and Mark and the team. We're hoping to be included in as part of the strategic planning for next year. But the idea was to just give you gentlemen an idea of what we're trying to accomplish, what some of the benefits would be, and what some of the value would be as well.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. Okay, on to old business. David?
Hello.
Morning.
Quick update on VRBO changes is something you may have heard about. We looked at it, and we've been looking at for the past few months. Some of our rental management groups specifically joined together and sent us a letter asking us to get involved in this process where we could. In response to that, on February 21st, we had a partner meeting in this room. Had about 100 of our rental management partners show up, so it's definitely a topic they're very interested in. That was a good brainstorming session. It was a good opportunity for them to share with each other a lot of what was going on. And their concern essentially is that a lot of them rely or use VRBO to market their accommodations. And VRBO is changing its business model a little bit in a way that could be good for VRBO and bad for the rental management companies. So they're understandably concerned. We sit kind of on a fine line on this subject because for some of our bed tax collectors, VRBO is the right tool for them, or they feel it's the right tool for them. Even these rental management groups that don't like the changes, not a lot of them are really talking about discontinuing use of VRBO. So what we did, we took a lot of the learnings from that meeting, and as we go forward looking at building our new website, that's one of the things we're taking into account. To be more immediate, though, we also added a page to our existing website. Visit southwalton.com/bookdirectmessage, where we've made available some messaging that our partners can use for free. They can edit it to fit their business. They can use it verbatim. We also are posting information that our partners are interested in sharing with each other to that webpage. And we also created some graphics that indicate each accommodation using this as a South Walton expert, because we want to emphasize the importance of booking direct or booking with a local company, because that's one of the chief concerns with changes that VRBO may make, is that they'll strip away that local branding And instead of going to, say, a call center with a local rental management group to get information about South Walton, you might end up routed to a distant call center and someone who might not know the area. And the concern, of course, is that that's going to devalue the guest experience. The concern mainly for the rental management companies are that it's going to, you're going to see higher rates and it's going to cut into their profit margin, and they don't feel like that's in a sustainable way. We followed up by staff attending a VRBO HomeAway meeting on March 14th. It turned out to be basically a sales pitch by a HomeAway ambassador. 90% of it was saying, hey, we know you're concerned. We know we didn't do a great job of letting you know about these changes. We're going to do a better job forward. And 10% was, if you don't get on board, you're going to be in big trouble, essentially. So that was that meeting. One of the ways, as I said, from our meeting, we took a lot of suggestions. Many of them are already in play. And one of the final suggestions that we're looking at is, as we build the new website, possibly incorporating a way for visitors to the website to book rooms directly with our partners. The TDC would take on the cost of this, so it would be a free service to the partners. They wouldn't get charged any of those fees or sign-up fees or subscription fees. So we think if we can find the right partner to make that happen, and if that is something that partners continue to be interested in, that could be a path we pursue to bring value to our rental management companies and also our individual renters, anybody really who's a bed tax collector. You guys have any questions about VRBO? And
I think it's an interesting concept of bringing it into the TDC, facilitating it.
it would be a way to make a one-stop shop so that we could promote, go to this one website, see everything in South Walton. What it wouldn't be is a way that would take away from any of those partners. They could still go directly through their website, or booking through our website would be the same for them financially as a direct booking. What it would do, it would cost some of our budget to make that happen. But if that's something that the partners feel is valuable, then it could be a good investment.
And you're saying we can do that on our new website design, setting it up?
That would be when we would look at incorporating it. I don't think it would, right now, since we're looking at transitioning websites, we wouldn't want to put a lot of budget into making a change on our existing website. And this is still a pretty fluid situation. So VRBO can change their agreements with the individual rental management companies, or change their broad scope as well. So we're just keeping an eye on it and trying to keep our partners updated. We sent out mass email to everybody that attended our meeting and all our accommodation partners to let them know about the new resources that we have available for them.
Very good.
That's about it. All right.
Okay. Thank you, David. Philip, morning.
Good morning. Philip Downs, Downs and St. Germain Research. I'll be presenting the results of the calendar year 2017 Economic Impact Study. And it's a good news study. It's the kind of study that the local media wouldn't pick up because it's good news. It's not bad news. Nobody got killed. Jobs were created. And in fact, there is a significant impact from the information that you're going to see for local residents. For example, over 20,000 jobs created by our visitors. So that helps all the folks here in Walton County put food on the table, send their kids to college, buy clothes, and buy health care and all the other things that we need. In addition to that, over 3/4 of the retail spending in Walton County is done by visitors. So if you extend that out, what that really means is that 3 out of 4 restaurants would not be here. Jim would not have his fine restaurants here. He'd have them somewhere else. And the clothing options that are available to all the local residents, 3/4 of them wouldn't be here. So that's sometimes an unthought of benefit to all of our visitors. And in terms of Walton County government, 2/3 of the revenue that goes into Walton County government comes from our visitors. And after figuring in the cost of servicing our visitors, there's a net benefit to Walton County government of over $33 million. So it's a big story. It's a good news story. By the way, the information for this report comes from interviews with over 3,600 visitors throughout 2017. We appreciate the participation by many of the property management firms, Sandestin, and we also do interviews on site along the beach. So this information, as we look through it, economic impact of $4.4 billion. And that's a big number. That comes from nearly $3 billion in direct spending. Our over 4 million visitors last year spent nearly $3 billion in Walton County. You can see the increases over time. You know, we do this type of research for 12 DMOs in Florida, and you have no idea how good your data look compared to other counties. I mean, as long as we've worked with you, it's been just a good news story. But that's not true in every county. And the increases in visitors, say from 2015 to 2016, nearly 15%. From 16 to 17, nearly 9%. This isn't happening across the state. Every visitor has an economic impact of almost $1,100. We start to get into the weeds here a little bit, but I'll point out one thing here. The 8.6% increase in visitation from 16 to 17. The wages paid, over $630 million wages paid to people working in Walton County from the over 21,000 jobs created by visitors. Room nights are up over 7%. Room rates, occupancy, RevPAR, all up. Things are rosy. And there's the wage figure that I mentioned. Wages paid to people working in Walton County based on what visitors bring in. Sometimes we get a little frustrated with our visitors, especially when we get into traffic or have to wait to get into Jim's restaurants. But every 184 visitors creates a job here in Walton County. TDT collections were up over 23 million. I'm not sure if you know, but Walton County ranks 10th in the state in TDT collections. It's 41st in population. You guys are, what's that old Southern phrase about you're out putting your coverage when your wife looks better than you do? Yeah. You're out putting your coverage. Every dollar Visit South Walton TDC spends is associated with $323 of spending by visitors. I mentioned Walton County government and those last two slides, a lot of detail on how we get that number, but there's a net benefit to Walton County government of over $33 million from visitors. Here's another slide I really want to focus on. This is retail spending in Walton County. 3/4 of the spending at the retail level comes from our visitors. And so you start to think about, okay, they're paying 3/4 of the sales tax. And when you look at property tax, they're paying about 2/3 of the property tax. I'll point you to one number here, the 217,900. I know the TDC is charged with bringing visitors, but they take their charge seriously. They don't try to bring numbers like, say, Panama City or Destin. They try to bring quality. And that quality is reflected in that 217,000 average household income. And the 95% figure at the top there, 95% of our visitors will return. We are providing them a nice positive experience when they're here. So this report has thousands of other pieces of information in it, and I'll be happy to to expand on it if you like, but I'll pause here for questions and then see if we need to go any deeper.
This is always my favorite part of the meeting. So, Philip, in your opinion, how much higher can we go? And what are our risks, if there are any?
That can go a lot of different ways. Obviously, you need to continue to provide a quality experience, and you should be comforted by that 95% who say they will return. I skipped over a slide that was very busy, but it talks about how visitors rate their experience here in terms of various attributes. And the only two areas where there is a bit of a gap is value for the travel dollar, which you generally see that in almost any destination. People always think that they're not quite getting what they pay for. And the other is customer service. So if we can, as a destination, focus on continuing to provide and to improve the level of customer service that every single company, every single business that interacts with our visitors can provide, that certainly would be a beneficial focus.
That's a
Any
good
other
answer.
questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good, thank you.
All right. Catherine?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Catherine Andrew with Zender Communications. I'm here to give you an update on February and March highlights of our marketing efforts to continue to see those great numbers that Philip just presented. So first we have our media overview. We've secured 2 new media opportunities since we last met. Southern Lady magazine will be in the May and June issue. Circulation of 114,000. We were able to secure a spread in this placement at a savings of $12,000. So it's really great for our target audience, and they also have a feature on watercolor, so we'll be next to that feature as well to make sure that the destination is represented. And then in Travel Girl, we secured a spread for $2,500. Typically, a full page goes for about $18,000, so it's a pretty significant savings there as well. We'll be next to an 8-page Florida Panhandle advertorial as well. And the circulation there is about $150,000. Our added value, we continue to secure negotiated free coverage for the destination. So we're at over $1.7 million for the year. A couple examples here, Mobile Bay Magazine is actually included in our events grant program. So we received an e-newsletter from them that promoted the destination, then also generally talks about events and why you should be coming here year round. And then for preview, we had a spotlight e-blast to our meeting and incentive planners through that placement as well. Our winter digital co-op results, our goals, as you know, are always higher than our guaranteed placements. So everyone is trending towards that goal. We did receive some partner assets late, so those lower numbers is what you're seeing there. But digital allows us to kind of adjust as we need to, so then all of them will receive their not only guaranteed, but above the guaranteed clicks, and then receive those reports once that is finished, which actually finished a couple days ago. Brand digital performance, we are far exceeding the industry averages for click-through rates on both desktop and mobile. Interestingly, our best performing desktop and mobile creative last month was promotion of new air service on Facebook. Our SEM recap, these are our paid AdWords through Google, continuing to exceed our click-through rate goal, which is above the industry average goal as well. So continuing to see really great success there with all of our AdWord groups. Signature events performance, each of the events have received over 6 million impressions through that program. This is just an event or an update from what we showed last meeting. And then we have our experience as well. We're also receiving at least 1.5 million impressions per event. And then this is the first time we have North Walton included in here. We've just started the promotion of those events that are coming up this year. These promotions are running in a 2 to 3 hour radius as far as drive time to the destination, and on display advertising, Pandora, and then through social media as well. On our social media front, we're continuing to see strong growth on all of our channels. As we know, Facebook's not focused on growth as much anymore, so it's good to continue to see a little bit of growth there. Instagram is blowing everything out of the water at over 100% yearly growth, and then YouTube continues to be really successful for us for those videos. I've mentioned in a couple of the past meetings that we'll be reporting on Facebook and Instagram a little bit differently. We're no longer doing the comparison against competitors just because of how the algorithm has shifted. So we are now in this pay-to-play world focusing on getting our brand message in front of more people. So if you see those impressions going from January to February, significant increase there with that change in our efforts. And then also our cost per thousand in our impressions is significantly lower. So we're getting more bang for our buck. We're getting our message in front of more people, which then shows ad recall lift of 7.4% when the average goal for Facebook is just 6%. So we're exceeding that as well. And then our reach year over year with that new shift in how we're deploying those funds, we have increased our reach by 18%. And these are just a couple of examples of our highest reaching content. Again, video is incredibly successful. People want to see the destination and they want to see it as if they can be there. So that's been really great for us. And then on the content marketing front, these are our February articles. We noticed that there was a missing piece in our content, so we've added that fisherman's guide, which explains how you can get licensing, charter info, and then also some alternatives with kayak and paddleboarding fishing as well. Insider tips for finding your Zen in South Walton, going after our health-conscious female audience, and then how to get around South Walton, really capitalizing on the bikeability, the walkability of the destination. And then in March, we updated our fly and drive time article to include all of the new air service. And then we also have a dessert tour up on the website right now, which interestingly, desserts are very popular as far as content goes on our website. And then we have our part 3 of the Bikeable Beach Neighborhoods tour as well, which will be a 4-part series. And that is everything from us. Any questions?
It's great. It's great to see some emphasis on the health and wellness idea because it's just blowing up everywhere.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
throughout the country.
Yeah, and we'll continue to include that as well.
I kind of prefer the dessert part personally.
Anything else?
Very good.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Thank
Catherine.
Thank you.
Good morning again. Just a quick update on some projects that are ongoing that you've heard about previously, just some updates from the marketing department. As we've talked before, we're producing an entirely new suite of print publications, including our visitor guide, which is going through a major redesign, which is that one on the left. That cover at this point is just in concept stage right now, but that will be going to the printer within a month. The middle one we talked about last time is our dining guide that we've finished production on. It should arrive today, so we're excited to get that one distributed in market. Again, a lot of these pieces, our objective is to be the authoritative voice on all things South Walton that are consumer facing as they're both in the market and before they get here. Next kind of on our slate is the one on the right, which is a wedding guide. We do get a lot of requests, Dawn and her team, on wedding information in the area, so we're making a dedicated guide for that as well. That is currently in production in our office. So we're excited to roll these out. This is a new initiative for us, so they're kind of coming out one at a time as we get them done. As we get into 2019, they'll be produced on an annual basis, and we'll continue to do that each year. A couple of other things just to give some updates on. A couple of meetings ago, this council approved us to go out to bid for a new website and move some budget around. That received BCC approval as well. The RFP went out, proposals came back in. They're currently being scored by a review committee, a review panel rather. We should have that process finished up here pretty quickly with our intent to get that website built and launched in this year. So that's moving along nicely. The airport marketing program, this council approved us spending some money to promote new flights on American Airlines. We went to the BCC with that, received their approval as well. So we're rolling out that initiative in Charlotte and Dallas to inform those folks there's some new ways to get here. The beach neighborhood videos continue in production. We're excited to get those done. That'll be a big part of our new website with a little bit more video focus than what we have currently. And South Walton Fishing Adventures, which has come up in previous meetings, continues to air on the Sportsman Channel. We have a few more original airings left. and then some reruns, after which all the shows have aired originally and then rerun. We'll get all the footage back and we can kind of slice and dice and repackage for whatever purpose we'd like to see there. That's all the update I have. I'll be happy to answer any questions before I turn it over to Don.
I think we're good.
All right, thanks very much.
Thank you, Mike.
Good morning, Council.
Morning.
Dawn Trumper, Director of Sales. We have been busy. In mid-February, we went to Connect Financial in Orlando. This was a hosted buyer appointment-only reverse trade show focusing on banking, accounting, and financial services segments. We had 24 individual appointments. It resulted in 2 leads so far, so we were excited about that. It's the first time we attended that event. Late February, we went to Rendezvous South. That was in Daytona, Florida. It's sponsored by Convention South magazine. Many of you may recall that Convention South 9 years in a row has named us a top destination. We worked in partnership with Sandestin on this trade show. We had 19 scheduled appointments and has already resulted in 4 leads from that show. Then March 20th, we went to Atlanta. We exhibited at the Tech Summit for the Georgia chapter of Meeting Planners International. It's one of their larger chapter luncheons, since technology and meetings is always of such interest. So there were 200 people that attended that trade show, and as I said, we exhibited there. And then since we were in Atlanta, the following day we did our own event, a lunch event and a reception where we brought our Artist of the Year, Kathleen Broderick. We had Great and Beer tastings, and 5 of our hotel partners came with us to that event. We hosted 42 planners. I have to say it was a great event, very popular. Many people who weren't familiar with the destination in Atlanta, believe it or not, but some great interest, and that's already resulted in a lead as well. So we hope to continue having events like that. Upcoming, we are working with our PR team to host a media fam that is focused on groups and incentive travel. That's later in April. And then we'll be assisting with a co-sponsorship opportunity for Georgia Society of Association Executives that's hosted at Sandestin in late May. We're continuing prospecting our own direct sales efforts from our database, and we're following up with the clients that we just hosted in Atlanta. We have finalized our partnership with Helms Briscoe, and we're producing a direct mail postcard to those sellers, over 900 of them, on the destination, and the first postcard in our drip campaign drops this afternoon. We are working on our creative for the weddings brochure, as Mike just went over, and then we are finalizing our special offers marketing piece. We just have to proof it, and then it's ready to go to print. That will be something that we'll offer to groups who are coming here as part of their registration packets, and it will include discounts on activities, restaurants, and retail. We just completed our meetings brochure. That's the brochure that you have in front of you. I wanted to provide a sample. It's a lot more detailed than what we had in the past, and we think picture-wise and description tells the great story of the destination. So this may be a new set of data for you, but I wanted to share these results with you. This is from our Cvent partner. Cvent is an online platform that meeting planners use to distribute leads to destinations and to hotels. And they just sent us this analytical data as we compare from 2016 full year to 2017. So I think some of the great call-outs, unique RFPs, requests for proposals, we went from 380 in 16 up to 442 for 17, so that was a 16% increase in new leads coming to us. I think the thing that's also great information is that awarded RFPs, which is our conversion rate, was up 70%. We went from 37 definite leads last year to 63. Room nights went up 40%, and the value of the RFP went up 43%. So some good news. We did some changes in our listing in CVent. Zender helped us as well. Just better photography, more descriptives, and a little bit different of who we targeted in CVent and how they saw our information, but all at the same cost year over year. And then our visitor center stats continue to be impressive. January visitor count was up 15% year over year. February, our visitor count was up 32%. So fiscal year, we've received 7,722 people into the visitor center, which is a 22% increase. And then branded merchandise, January, $4,247 in merchandise, which was an 89% increase year over year. And then February, $8,434, which is a 219% increase. So overall, we're up 223% in merchandise sales fiscal year, and we expect to continue those same great numbers. And then Friday, 2 of our information specialists will be attending the Visit Florida Spring Festival at the 231 Welcome Center. Any questions?
On that last slide, there was one line item about unique room nights down 10%. What is that?
Unique is if they have never been here before. So somebody for the first time who came to us. I think room nights is relative. We're sort of seeing it industry-wide as far as people having smaller meetings, not bringing as many people out of the office, smaller and shorter.
Okay.
I think in order to save money.
But your overall is up, clearly, right?
Yeah, and I can dive a little bit deeper into that if you're interested and find out. My guess is because summer is so busy already that the unique ones now, as we continue to promote shoulder season, is probably definitely where we need to continue our efforts.
Okay.
Yep. Yes.
Dawn, that's a big increase for the retail center.
Yes.
So my question is, so are y'all open 6 days, 7 days a week?
We're open 7 days a week.
7 days a week?
Yeah. I knew you were going to ask me this, so I can tell you exactly what it is. Believe it or not, T-shirt sales equate to over $4,000 just in February, and it's short sleeve T-shirts and long sleeve T-shirts. So I think we've definitely hit on a good quality T-shirt. The logo, the way that we presented it this year has been very successful, and then quite frankly, the little sea animals are also really popular with the children.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, you got some good people that are working in there.
We do. We have excellent
They're
people working in there.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dawn.
Thank you.
Hi.
David?
Thank you, guys. David Demers, Director of Communications. Give you a snapshot as we march along in communications and PR. Continue to receive a lot of good press coverage right where we'd want to. Southern Living, Convention South, we were in twice, USA Today, Destinations I Do. So everything from general coverage to more specific events. You see the Thrillist.com that calls something you guys spoke to earlier today, the coolest thing opening in America in 2018. One of those was considered the Underwater Museum of Art. Hotels with seriously amazing spring break packages, so keep the spring season alive, and even got some stuff over in the UK. And some of that is coming from the press trips that we've previously hosted that continue to pay off. To that end, we've got a MICE trip that Dawn mentioned coming up that we're excited about, hosting some good journalists and keeping that pipeline full. Another more luxury-centered event coming up around the Digital Graffiti Weekend. They'll get to see all of the destination. It'll be digital graffiti one night and a chance to meet with artists. So that really helps underline our connection with art as well as a beautiful environment and architecture. We did 2 international FAM trips this last time period, both partnering with Visit Florida. The good thing about partnering with Visit Florida for these trips is that they pay for the transportation costs and pick up some of the other incidentals along the way. The only negative to it is that we share them with 2 other destinations at least. But in the past, we've been good about getting the lion's share of coverage even in those situations. One of the English travel writers that came in has already pitched and sold a story on the 20th anniversary of the Truman Show in Seaside, and sold that to the Economist, which is one of their largest newspapers in England. And coming up on May 9th, as part of Tourism Week, we'll bring down some members of our PR team from Turner that will present a workshop for our partners that are interested in learning more about best practices in PR. And we will continue to pitch spring travel, digital graffiti, destination weddings, and along with the new flight routes that are available to our destination partners, we want to let people know about that. So here's some of the clippings. You'll see how they were laid out in the newspapers and magazines. Again, you have some that are looking forward several months, some that are more immediate, and some that are aspirational as to the weddings. You guys have any questions as to what we're doing in communications? All right, we'll keep it up. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
Morning, council members. Brian Kellenberger, Director of Beach Operations.
Morning, Brian.
Appreciate your time again. Beach operations updates. All righty, beach maintenance, garbage held steady in January, about 140 bags a day. Of course, we average our trucks as they come in. Slightly down from last year at this time. We attribute this to our guests have become more efficient with their garbage.
Yeah, right.
February, about the same, 140, a little slight lull right there in the middle of the month. Not down quite as much in February from last year, about 6% difference. Beach code enforcement updates. Oh, one thing I'd like to add for beach maintenance, our beach maintenance manager, Josh Irvin, just obtained his Part 107 FAA license to fly UASs. That means we can fly our drone legally now and get some great aerial footage of our projects we're doing, as well as document all of our beach access points for future reference in the thing of event of a large storm. Pretty important. As you know, drones have become very popular, and as county representatives, we felt very important we do everything legally. Beach code enforcement. 459 contacts for January, up considerably over January of last year. February, 598. As typical, they were mainly glass, dogs, and bonfires. Once again, our bonfires people are doing a pretty good job. Slight dip in our compliance rate for January. February is back up into the high 87%, which means that people are doing bonfires correctly. The rest of it is we deal with is mainly vendor stuff. As you can see, very few vendor contacts for January and February in different vendor categories. Means the vendors are also doing a good job at their industry, which is good. Some updates for beach code enforcement. Our beach access signages is signage for the code revisions we made earlier this year is being fabricated and should be installed by mid-April. We will then go back and change the customary use block as it becomes law in July 1st, unless things change in between now and then. All of our beach code enforcement officers have completed their FWC, FWS, shorebird, and turtle identification classes. We do this every year, make sure everybody's up to date, because those guys are on the beach a lot. Permitting, we have 2018, we have 110 permitted vendors. That's 275 permits that break down as 190 specific place. That's the ones that deal with resort, HOA, and stuff like that. And 85 delivery. Compared to last year, For the total year, we had 104 permitted vendors, 272 total permits, 194 specific, 78 delivery. So for the first 2 months of the year, we have surpassed what we did all of last year. We expect to be up probably 25 or 30% over last year. Capital improvement projects, our multi-use path repair and replacement, phase 2 of the section at Western Lake to 283, still pending an easement from the state park systems. We've made some tremendous headway with that. Our Public Works Engineering Department is actually spearheading that for us, but we expect that to happen pretty soon, and then that portion of the path will start under construction probably after tourist season or after August. 283 to 83 underway, expect it to be complete by mid-May. Ran into a few issues, but we've gotten over all that, and they're working hard. For the wooden bridges, we have all those designed and permitted, and they're being replaced as we replace new path. Our beach access renovations, we started in 2016 with design and permitting on the portion of them, continue in 2017. That process is continuing on. We have received some of the final permits in. We bid out 4 of those projects. We have those in, and we're analyzing those, evaluating. They came in a little higher than what we thought, and so we may go back for a rebid. We may accept them as they are. At any rate, we won't construct these until after the summer season. And those 4 were Inlet Beach, Regional Beach Access, Fort Panic, and then Hickory Street and 395. Both of those are MBAs in the Seagrave area. And these are strictly rebuild, renovate of the boardwalk, dune walk over. It does not include parking lot or anything like that. Beach access construction, we purchased 3 pieces of property. One of them is Dune Allen. We're about 7% complete. Had a minor setback. We were trying to get a setback variance. We were informed that we were not going to be allowed to do that, so we had to step back, move the building back a little bit. We lost 2 parking spaces, but we still have 26 spaces. Be a nice park. Expect that design to be complete by late July, and then we'll do the construction RFP. Takes about 2 months. Start construction shortly after that. Miramar Beach, Regional Beach Access. We've had our public workshop. I have a typo here. It's actually 16 parking spaces and 6 golf cart parking spaces, a loading and unloading zone, and ADA accessible boardwalk. This is it. From our workshop, we gained some information about ways to do the parking differently. So now we actually have a small island that separates the parking lot from the road, which makes it a lot safer. Angled parking, and then adjacent to that island, south of the road, is a loading and unloading zone, and then some golf cart parking. 2 handicap spaces over by the bathhouse, which is on the left-hand side of that. And then the ADA accessible boardwalk, as well as a stepped boardwalk from the center pavilion. So right now, there's a gazebo there. We'll actually take that down and build a new gazebo that looks similar to our bathhouse, and it'll have steps down it. So it'll be a nice park there. Design and permit will take another 4 to 6 months, and pending funding, we'll get started on it as soon as we can. It's currently open right now for use, using the existing gazebo and boardwalk to the beach. Seagrove, that's our property we purchased down by the Tom Thumb area, Cafe 30A. Challenging site. It is a drainage ditch for a very large drainage basin. The ditch traverses east to west on that property. As you can see, that line in the middle there, it's got some wetlands associated with it. We met with DEP to get a better understanding of what they're going to allow us to do there. Looks like we'll be doing some sort of bridge structure to get across that ditch in the wetland area. Public Works is also working on a companion project for stormwater in that area. They have some designs already completed. They're working on permitting. We're going to tie all this together and hopefully solve some of that drainage problem for that drainage basin, as well as create a nice regional beach access. Put as much parking as we can in there, with still keeping a lot of the natural area. The 38 parking project, we finally got to the end of that, and we have some pictures. So there was 5 focus areas. One of them was Blue Mountain Beach. This is a shot looking down. Before we started, there was already some gravel parking. And then, of course, people parked in that grassy area between the road and that sidewalk right there. This is the new improved look. We've got now concrete pavers, storm water, nice 5-foot sidewalk, connecting crosswalks to the park. And looks great, and it keeps people parking where they should park. Nice formal area. This is our area at Ed Walleen and 393. Looking north at 393, we put in 17 parking spaces on the east side of the road. Nice connecting 5-foot sidewalk all the way up. Makes a nice intersection there now. Here's our Fort Panic Regional Beach access. If you remember, all that parking on the side of the road was all gravel, and we had about 100 of those little green delineator posts. Now we have nice formalized parking islands with small bedding plants and no green posts. We're going to add a little bit of work on this one. We've discovered that some people are parking right in front of those islands, so we're going to change those islands to make them a little bit bigger and stop that. Once again, the whole purpose was to create formalized parking so people would park where they're supposed to and not park haphazardly and create site issues where you come out of the parking area. This is the area further west on 30A, south side of the road in front of Dune 1. About 8 parking spaces there. The area just to the west of that is our new Dune Allen Regional Beach access. Once again, we'll start construction on it probably in September. Earlier or late last year, y'all approved us to do some conceptual planning on linking those 2 parks together with right-of-way parking on the south shoulder. This is our conceptual plan. We have a workshop this afternoon at 5 p.m. in this room, if you'd like to come, to take public input and then move towards presenting to the BCC and getting approval to do design development. So this is the area right in front of Stinky's Restaurant. Those are the parking places that are already there. As you move to the east, there's a lot of driveway cuts, and because of the site triangles, it prohibits us from doing parking, but we do have connecting sidewalk. As you move further east, this is where Fort Panic Road meets 30A. There'll be about 10 spaces there, and then it'll connect to our existing Fort Panic Regional Beach access. Sidewalks will all connect, and we'll have complete connectivity along the south right-of-way for people that are using those 2 regional beach accesses. We'll also include some landscaping, curb and gutter, and stormwater on the north side to beautify that side of the road. And so when we get done, that complete corridor from the east side of Fort Panic to the west side of the new Dune Allen will look like that right there. Low bedding plants, nice islands, nice formalized parking, and we hope that that will be a model for the moving on down 30A to correct some of these parking issues we have and beautify 30A, scenic corridor. Finally got our TDC maintenance renovations project approved. We had to rebid that project. New price came in at $158. We actually did reduce the scope of work. Empire Builders was awarded the project. We're waiting on the contractual documents to move back and forth. We should start that here pretty soon. Any questions or comments on beach operations?
How much, that some of the bike path that's being torn up and rebuilt, what's your timeline for completion on that?
The section between 283 and 83 will be done in mid-May.
Mid-May?
Right.
Okay.
And so we looked at, I know it's been kind of stressful for some people. We looked at other options to do there, but that section of road didn't warrant another path on the north side of the road because there's nothing over there. It's just all state forest or state park. And then it also would have required, so what we've done in the past is we've built a new path on the other side of the road while the old path's open, then we close it down. That's what we did at the Western Lake Bridge project, we called it. This section didn't warrant that. Plus it would have meant temporarily bridging 3 coastal dune lakes. And so that would have meant regular design and permitting for that. So anyway, we had to make a decision to do that path by closing it down.
Sure.
And it had a 4-month, or has a 4-month schedule on it. We had a few utility challenges at first, but we've gotten over those. There's a lot of utilities in the right-of-way that some are marked, some are not marked. We actually uncovered some old storm water that nobody knew was there at Alligator Lake. And so anyway,
And so I see you went to a 10-foot path.
Yes, sir.
What was it before?
8 foot.
8 foot.
Nominal 8 foot. When I say that, you know, some sections were a
Yeah.
little more narrow. That section of path, when it was put down, didn't have proper base underneath it, most of it. So it heaved and hoed a little bit. And all the new path, pulling it up, putting down proper sub-base, compacted to FDOT regulations, and then new 1.5-inch asphalt. And so the new path ought to stay in place for a long time. And it's got new signage, some other amenities that make it a little bit nicer. We put in some rest areas at key locations so you can get off the path, benches, garbage cans. We're looking at putting in some water fountains that are a combination water fountain, water bottle refiller, and a dog or animal
Yeah.
watering station.
Right.
Has there been any conversation about right-of-way parking in those areas in the future as it relates to future transit systems or public transit?
In what areas?
In those, like in that stretch there, you were saying on the, you know, the other, there's a lot of open area there.
Our parking, our 30A parking project, it started with that AvCon parking assessment. And the goal was to create parking or formalize parking in and around the regional beach accesses. And so that stretch of road there between 283 and 83 does not have much on, or anything on the north side of the road. So it wouldn't be advantageous to put any parking there because people would not be going anywhere along there that they would need to park. See what I'm saying?
I do understand what you're saying. I'm kind of referring to as it, we're looking at areas for parking lots to park and ride in the future, and those areas, seems to be a lot of county-owned or state-owned property in those areas that could accommodate some of those needs.
Yeah, you know, it's problematic to consider state forest or state park land for mass parking if there's not already parking there. You know, a lot of people really enjoy the open space, don't want to start a, what they consider a, take an inch, you know, take a yard
Sure.
type situation. But Jay is heading up most of the parking, what we call the long-term solution to our parking issues. And we had a program going on. I think it's been somewhat defeated, and we're looking at different alternatives now, where we can put parking. We recently purchased an area on Driftwood and Scenic Gulf Drive area, where we'll put, what we have, 100 parking spaces? 95 parking spaces there. We have our area there at Grayton, across from the Mystic Port. We call it Grayton Central. That we'll be looking at doing, you know, what we call some short-term, be 5-year, and then some long-term, which may include different scenarios. And we're also looking for some central locations up and down 38 that we can buy. Once again, you know, while it's a much-needed solution, the parking problem, it has been very hard to figure out where to put these things due to cost and then proximity to people that do not want them. Everybody wants a solution, they just don't want it next to their house.
Well, and being consistent with the right-of-way parking that the model you're putting in, I think is
Yeah.
beautiful, and that y'all done a great job with it, and looking at it up and, you know, down that stretch where there's really not, currently, there's not a lot of homeowners and there's not a lot of people to shut it down. And from a park and ride standpoint, without going out and purchasing big pieces of property, those might be some solutions.
Yeah.
Just a
Good
thought.
idea. Appreciate it. Yes, sir.
Really nothing other than what Matt was talking about, but the 283, the sooner they get that done, the better.
Oh, yeah.
I know they're
yeah,
on a timeline.
We have. You know, one thing I didn't anticipate was, you know, I anticipated people riding on the bike path.
Yeah.
We're not going to a critical destination. In other words, when they got to a sign that said path closed, they would say, oh, okay, we need to reverse our course and go the other direction. But apparently some people are dead set on going, you know, from Blue Mountain Beach to Grayton Beach or vice versa.
Yeah.
And it's been very disconcerting for me. I go down and monitor the project on a daily basis, and I see families trying to ride that road, and I'm like, oh my gosh.
And that's a very narrow road. That's
It
one
is.
of the narrowest parts of 38
Yeah.
right there. And that's
Yeah.
very, very dangerous.
Listen.
Fortunately, you know, most of the path that we're gonna build in the future, we're working very close with Public Works. And, most of the areas on 30A moving forward will have path on both sides, be it sidewalk or, multi-use path. And so there'll be an alternative to route pedestrian and bikers around a construction area. And, like I said, some lessons learned on this one. We did explore some alternatives, they just weren't cost feasible.
And I think, like you said, Brian, I think the amount of traffic surprised all of us.
Mhm.
I travel that road almost every day,
Mhm.
and I'm amazed that a mom and dad will take their 3 little kids out there and ride that distance from there. It's scary to me,
Yeah, it is.
but they do. And
Yeah.
But that was just the point too, is to make sure from now on, when we're doing these planning of these paths, you know, both sides are great, but that, you know, that one side that we're working on, somehow or another, we gotta get them off the road, because really 38 is just dangerous anyway.
Oh, yeah,
you
yeah.
know.
Well, it's dangerous too with the semi-professional riders.
Yeah.
But when you throw families in with them, it really makes it very difficult to maneuver on that
We
road.
did create a construction zone speed limit of 25 miles an hour.
I was just gonna ask that, are we within our rights to lower the speed limit
We
temporarily?
did, we bagged
Yeah.
all the regular speed limit signs, put up some temporary signage.
Yeah.
Now, as you know, people on 38 aren't big on reading signs.
Yeah, Brian and I've been talking about
It has
this.
slowed them down, I mean, I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
What I've seen is people are going slower. They're cognizant that there are some people on the road that aren't normally there, bikers, you know.
And the signs were great help for that.
Yeah.
Brian and I've been talking about this since it started, and he's been on top of that. He got the signs out there very quickly, and he's been keeping a close eye on it because he calls me all the time about it. But it is really scary.
It is, especially all these people. Roads look great, parking areas look great, that's what we're talking about. Got those green stakes out of the way. Those things were eyesores, even though we still have a bunch around. But keep up the good work. I hope that we can figure out a way. There's some properties out there that we need to purchase. We need to get these parking areas done. It's gonna keep growing. We're going to see, look at Destin. Right now, those people are pulling their hair out over there. You know where they're gonna go? They're coming over here. That's what we're gonna see. Next couple of months or the rest of this year, those people are not gonna deal with Destin. They're gonna come back here their second time this year. They're coming over here to South Walton, guaranteed. And we're not gonna have a place for them to park. We're gonna have people complaining, so we're gonna have to figure this out real soon. Because we can't keep kicking this can down the road. We need to have it done.
I agree.
It's important.
Adequate parking centralized and then
Absolutely.
shuttle.
And shuttle
make it
them
east
out.
and
We
west.
can, you know, our opinion, Attorney General's opinion is for tourism. Well, let's get to it. You know, we gotta get it going. And thank you for all you do on that.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Any more
Thanks,
questions?
Brian. Oh, anybody else? Okay.
Good morning again.
Morning, Jay.
And I'll segue from our conversation we were just having to transportation. So the last meeting, we discussed the transportation RFP and us working on that and releasing it just to kind of see where we are with things pricing-wise, because we obviously have no idea where this is going to come in price-wise. So in the past 2 months since the last meeting, I've had a conversation with Matt Carpenter, the planning director, and not sure if the council is aware, but the county has received a $3.2 million grant from the state for a north-south transportation system. And so Mac and I were talking, and we thought that it would be very relevant if we worked together on an RFP. And so we'd have a north-south and we'd have an east-west, so 2 different components of that. So we would specify in there that we would want 2 prices on that, obviously, because the grant would cover the north-south, and then perhaps depending on the cost, the TDC could cover the east-west. So Mac and I are working on that. He wants to get that out in short order. So I'm gonna begin working with him on that, and I'll just keep you apprised as we move forward on that. But obviously, we'll be bringing that back to the Board of County Commissioners for their consideration soon. So just wanted to let you know what we're doing with that transportation RFP. Driftwood Road, Brian mentioned that a little bit when he was talking about parking. And so the board approved to move forward on onto contract. That was at the last BCC meeting. So I don't have the closing date, but I suspect it'd be within the next couple of weeks. So like Brian mentioned, we'll have 95 parking spaces there. And if you're not familiar with that area, it is just about 350 feet north of our Miramar Beach access. So where Pompano Joe's is, there's Driftwood Road, and it's about 350 feet, basically about a block north of that beach access. So good access point for the beach. We can use extra parking there, as in other areas. It's just identifying those areas and getting to be able to purchase those properties. There's lots of different things. I don't need to tell this council that. I mean, you know, when we go to look at things, I mean, lots of planning components into buying a piece of property. So I'm always on the hunt for properties, and sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. Highway 331 properties. So this is, I mentioned at the last meeting, moving this forward to the board. I had just started moving forward with this process as I bought it before the council last meeting. And these were 3 pieces of property on Highway 331 South, just north of the high school, south of the bay. So kind of in the middle there between the high school and the bay. So we are getting the appraisals back on that, and 2 of them are in line with what the owners are asking. They had their own appraisals done, and they are asking appraisal prices for their properties. That would be the Sandcastles property and the Regional Utilities property. The other property was a plumbing supply company, and the appraisals are coming in much lower than what that owner's asking for that. So what I'd like to propose to the Board of County Commissioners is that we abandon pursuing that third parcel, that plumbing parcel, and we extend the lease at our property over on 83, over by Brian where he is currently, and we extend the lease. We can extend it to 50 years. So right now we have a 20-year lease, so we can extend it another 30 years, and we have 7 left on that. So we could extend it for basically 37 more years. So it's $300 a year. So if you do the math, it's about $9,000. So I think that would probably be a good move for us. The only concern is the space is not quite large enough for what we need for future growth. So I would ask the Board of County Commissioners for consideration to take some of the space from D5. There's 40 acres total over there. So I've had a couple of conversations with a couple of commissioners so far on that. Looks like we're, I think, going to be able to move forward with that, but obviously that's something we'll have to let the board decide on in totality. So that's kind of where we are with that. Wanted to give an update. Would like the support of the council in moving this forward to the Board of County Commissioners. I don't think it's something that we're prepared to vote on today. It's not an agenda item today. We don't have the full council here today. So I just wanted to have a conversation with you guys and kind of see what your thoughts were on moving this forward to the Board of County Commissioners.
Here's the thing I worry about since we don't have a full council. This property won't be here long. And,
right.
If we're ever going to have property on the west side of 331, which is where the TDC needs to be, people don't want to stop at the TDC going out of town. They want to stop at the TDC coming into town. Then I suggest we, if possible, Mr. Adkisson, you answer my question. Is it possible that we can set up a meeting? Do we have enough time to do it next, as soon as possible, to have this discussion with the full board? Or, this is something we don't need to, we either need to do it now or don't do it now. But if we don't do it now, we're going to be where we are forever.
We certainly have the ability to schedule a special meeting on that. Obviously, you meet every 2 months. Nothing prohibits you from meeting more frequently on special session. I know Jay and I spoke in advance of this meeting when we realized we were going to be down a chair and a vice chair, then found out we were also going to be down a secretary. So, frankly, council members were dropping like flies, and we were quite worried about a quorum to get anything approved prior to the BCC meeting. I know he had inquired with a couple of the board members who were unable to be here today. They'd advised they did have availability next week. I believe one of the dates had been potentially Friday morning of next week to look at. If the board wanted to, what you could do is make a motion now to schedule a special meeting for a set date and time We would hold the meeting on that date and time to address this specific issue of these properties. That would be sufficient. We wouldn't have to run a separate ad in the paper. We would do standard website posting, media blast, the way we do everything else. We just wouldn't run an ad in the paper. We are not required by law to actually run an ad in the paper for these meetings. But we would also then announce it if it is after next week's Board of County Commissioners meeting. I would have Mr. Tusa put that on the agenda of the BCC and announce it at that time as well. So not only would it be announced in this public meeting, standard county notice channels, but it will be announced at that meeting as well. So we have full public notice given, and you would certainly be within your ability to do that. I certainly think it would be prudent, rather than waiting 2 months to come back, to schedule this as early as you can to get back. And certainly it's usually a good idea to have the entire TDC's support on property purchases, as the BCC has often asked us to make sure we've thoroughly vetted it.
I make that motion.
Second that motion.
Would that be at 9 a.m. next Friday, Mr.
9
Anderson?
a.m. next Friday.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
April 13th,
Hey, that's Friday the 13th.
Friday the 13th.
Right.
It's okay.
What a great.
Jay, do you think by that time, I thought you mentioned that appraisals were in process. Will
Yeah,
they be
actually,
complete?
I got some feedback after you and I met yesterday.
You did.
And so, we'll have the appraisals back, and, I can share them with you, privately, one-on-one. We do not have to release our appraisals publicly, because it diminishes our ability to negotiate with
Sure.
the, buyers, rather with the sellers. So what I will do is, for that meeting, I will have prepared a confidential document for each of you to review that will have the appraisals and, then what the asking price is. And, basically what we'll do is we'll average the two appraisals.
Yeah.
And as long as it's kind of within that range, then we're good.
So what's the concern again with the plumbing supply company? He's asking too much?
He's significantly more.
Than-
And my conversation with the realtor for that property, he's not willing to negotiate. I can circle back around with him and see if they are, just one more time. But like I said, and based on what we know now from the state, we've contacted the state DEP, who owns the property over that we lease for Brian's facility, and they are willing to entertain a lease extension. So with that being said, as long as we can get a little bit more, and probably another couple acres from the county, from their portion, then I think we're good to stay there.
Jay, in an abundance of caution, since the board can't actually take action on any of this today, and it is a recommendation to forego one of those, probably bring the third piece on that meeting as well. You can still do the appraisal document so they can see and they can understand how much the significant difference is price-wise. And that way the board can give a vote up or down recommendation-wise, which will allow Mr. Anderson at the commission level, when the matter's presented to them, to actually vote up or down on any of the issues. And if the commission should decide they want to pursue that, they've had a recommendation from the TDC. So that way we cover all our bases.
Sounds good.
Awesome, Matt. The, something else I think Jay and I talked about was, and to back Tony up, was the real estate, being in real estate, it's going pretty quickly.
It is.
And a lot of commercial property right now, and that's along the main corridor. So it is a sense of urgency here for us.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a priority for us if we can.
Sure.
To do this. And another thing he and I are talking about, on 98, they have moved up the expansion of 98 to 6 lanes by 3 years. So now they're gonna have it started in 2023, which means that location we're in right now is probably gonna go away. Because they're gonna put an overpass right there and it's gonna come right through there. So with that being said,
Well, there's discussion of the overpass. I don't think that's
Yeah,
been
it's-
approved, but I do think that's gonna be part of that, and how our building plays a part of that equation, we don't know. But not only that, but just the construction, it's gonna be a mess over there for quite some time, so.
prudent to plan ahead.
Yeah, and we've talked about this, for quite some time, just the new TDC facility, so I don't think anybody will argue that it's needed, so, this is just, I think, the right opportunity and the right time.
I guarantee you your T-shirt sales will quadruple.
Well, and to Tim's point, and to what Jim was saying earlier too, I'm actively looking for properties constantly. I have real estate agents who call me. But the thing is we are slow because we're government. And, before I can even bring something to the board for consideration, it's sold. I don't even have a week or 2 week turnaround to bring it to the board, much less, it takes us probably about 2 months to buy a piece of property. So it's just slow going. So a lot of times when I find something and it's a great fit, it goes away quick. So, anyway, okay, we'll get the special meeting scheduled for next Friday, 9 a.m. I will get the information to you guys so you can see the appraisals and have a chance to review all that before the meeting. And if you have questions, we can certainly talk about that beforehand.
Gary.
Great, thank you. So, moving on, next item for me. State Park Parking Program. So, you know, we've done the program with the state parks. Grayton was the first time we did it last summer, and then we've done it with Topsail for 3 years prior. And so the state reached out to us and they said, hey, we like this program and we'd like to continue on with it. And so Jason and I have been working on a new revised MOU to bring forward to the Board of County Commissioners. Just wanted to kind of give you an update on that. We didn't really think it required approval since it's something we've been doing for the past few years. I wanted to give you an update that it's been very successful and the park enjoys the relationship with us, and so we're going to move that forward. We are increasing the dollars just a little bit. Last year we had to go back and ask the board for more money. I guess about maybe 3/4 of the way through the summer for more money for Grayton. And then actually we had to end it a week early because we ran out of money. Since I didn't have authorization from the board to spend additional dollars, we cut it off. So Jason and I looked at the budget and we put some additional dollars in there. So just a quick FYI, last year we spent $117,000 on both Grayton and Topsail, and this year we're putting $130,000 in the budget to cover both of those parks. So, and we're also going to ask the park to start the program the Friday before Memorial Day weekend versus Memorial Day. We've had a lot of people are going to the parks Memorial Day weekend, and they're kind of like, oh, we thought you had this parking program in place, and obviously we did not because it started Memorial Day. So we're backing it up just a few days that Friday before. So other than that, I think everything is still the same. Did I miss anything, Jason? Yeah. So
How is that program marketed?
We put signs on the side of the road for one, and we're looking at changing that to see how we can make that look better because it's those traffic signs out on the road. The park has asked us to put some signs in their driveways leading into the park, talking about the program, just kind of announcing it as people are driving in, they understand it. It's something that I think we need to do a little bit better job. Obviously, it's very successful, but I think it's something that we can do to promote even more so than what we do, perhaps through some digital and social. I know, I'm not sure if y'all get them on your phones, but you might not. I have a 504 cell phone, but I get ads for us all the time on my 504 phone number, my personal cell phone. So our ads are out there in front of people, so I think that it's something that we can look to do a little promotion that way, and that's relatively
I guess my
expensive.
thoughts are if we've been talking about a park and ride
Yeah.
system and going in and getting some creative on getting a logo that would be on a future sign that would indicate, or whether it's
Yeah.
on your app
Right.
or the visual, that this is a parking ride outpost, and go ahead and
Yeah.
starting that program.
Well, I don't necessarily know if it's a parking ride outpost. I mean, I think it's a destination in and of itself. I mean, it is an alternative to our busy beach accesses that it drives people to the state parks and they use their facilities as their beach access, as the choice, you know, if I were to go to the state park versus Fort Panic by my house.
Sure.
It's an alternative. And so I think for the visitor to either, okay, this beach access, there's no parking, it's busy, so I'm gonna go take advantage of, you know, the free parking at the state park and go partake in their offerings.
Right, and that's what, whether it is at the state park in the future or at one of our county-owned
Yeah.
lots, that same symbol would be recognized and understood as a part of our parking system. So that if you decided that the $130,000 a year might be better spent on our own property over 3 to 5 years,
And
that
to that,
the program has begun and
Yeah.
there's already a logo for it, an icon.
One thing we're gonna do, Jim, this year is, we haven't done it in the past, is collect zip codes. I've been kind of curious as we've been doing this program, who's parking there? Is it visitors? Is it locals? Is it a combination? What's the percentage? So we're gonna start collecting that data this summer so we can see who's exactly parking there. So once we have that, we can use that to kind of plan how we move forward.
How many different locations are we using this system with the state, and how many spaces is that adding, would you guess?
So currently there's 2 sites. There's Topsail State Park and
Right.
there's Grayton Beach State Park. The third state park is Deer Lake, And we have had conversations with the state folks about that park. And since there's no true infrastructure there, they have asked for us to hold off on any type of agreement with them like we have currently with Graydon and Topsail until they develop that park. They got some money in their budget to work on the facilities over there. I think, Jason, are they gonna start working on that next year? Yeah, so they're gonna start working on that next year. So perhaps maybe in another year or two, we can bring Deer Lake State Park into the mix with the parking program like we have with the other two. As far as parking spots, I don't know off the top of my head, do you recall?
Both parks together are close to 200 spaces.
Okay.
So, any other questions on it? So, real quick, Tourism Week. David mentioned earlier that we'll have our PR team from Turner in town to go over, and we're going to do some educational sessions for our partners. That will be on the 8th of May, it's a Tuesday, and it will be at Sandestin. We don't have the exact times worked out. We'll be sending out an email probably next week with all the details, but we're going to have a PR component, a digital and social component, and then also some hospitality training. So we'll probably have about 200 spots, 150, 200 spots that we can invite our partners to participate in this program with us. And it will be an RSVP thing, so obviously, you know, depending on how many people get signed up, might be limiting to some if we get filled up and there's no more room. We'll also be sponsoring the Chamber Luncheon on Wednesday, May 9th, as we usually do, and then we'll be presenting our Perfect in South Walton Awards on Thursday, May 10th. That'll be a little reception type event at we're not quite sure on the venue, so I don't want to release that name yet. We're working out those details right now, but we'll probably have, like I said, all that ironed out next week. So, so that's Tourism Week. Trying to get some new programs going this year, really promote tourism in South Walton. It's obviously very important to our economy and our way of life here. So that's Tourism Week. Legislative update, kind of gave you guys an update last meeting where we were with a bunch of things. So I kind of wanted to go through. A lot of stuff didn't go through the legislature. So Economic and Development Tourism Program Accountability, that was House Bill 3. That was a bill that required more transparency of contracts and activities at TDCs. That bill failed. Vacation rentals, that was where they were going to create some regulatory system for vacation rentals on a statewide level. That failed. And actually, that was going to preempt local regulation. So we're actually happy that failed. We need to regulate our accommodations on a local level and not being done from Tallahassee. The other one that failed was trade secrets. That was provisions for agencies, public records establishes exemptions. You know, as I mentioned at the last meeting, that really doesn't apply to us. That's kind of like some of the big boys that have trade secrets with conventions and what they do with that. That really doesn't apply to us. The one that passed and something that we need to pay attention to is the expansion of TDT funds. That was Senate Bill 7087. And so I've actually asked Clay to kind of address that one a little bit because it's going to impact us of how we do things a little bit in relation to funding different projects in the county.
Thanks, Jay. And if you have your packet from last time and are curious the exact language, we can certainly send out. It's actually House Bill 7087. In your prior packet, it was listed as House Bill 585. 585 died in Senate committee. The language, though, in large part was rolled into another bill on taxation broadly and included. While it expands the use of tax dollars under beach park facilities to address channels, estuaries, and lagoons, the big thing it does, and the governor did sign this into law, is Chapter 2018-118. It adds subsection 6 under the Tourist Development Statute that now deals with public facilities, and this will likely become known broadly as the Public Facilities Expenditure Provision. We are now authorized to, and there's a long list of things, standard language, acquire, construct, extend, expand, repair, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Public facilities. That money can go toward land acquisition, so we're no longer just now tied to beach park facilities. It can go to land improvement, design and engineering costs, professional costs related. Public facilities have been defined in the statute as any major capital improvement with a lifespan of 5 years or greater, and would include specifically by legislation transportation, sanitary sewer, solid waste, drainage, potable water, and pedestrian facilities. Now, to do this, the legislature put a number of requirements in place. The first and foremost, you as the TDC must make a recommendation to the BCC for the specific public facility that you want to spend TDT dollars on. To be eligible, you have to have over $10 million in tax revenue annually. We exceed that, so we'll be fine. A lot of our neighbors up here, a lot of other smaller counties aren't going to hit that 10 million threshold. We will exceed it. The requirement is that the governing board, which would be the BCC that Mr. Anderson there sits on, has to approve the proposed public facility by at least a 2/3 vote. Because we have a 5-member BCC, practically it becomes a standard supermajority. 4/5 is what it takes to pass these into regulation now. No more than 70% of the total cost of the public facility can come out of the TDT dollars. And the county, if they spend, so let's say it's $1 million project, $700,000 comes out of the TDC side of things, the county at the time they approve the facility has to designate where that other $300,000 is coming from up front. No matter what you do, even if you do that 70-30 split, you still must maintain at least 40% of the overall tax revenues collected by the county have to go to advertising and promoting tourism. So I know one of the things we've always talked about here at the TDC level is, well, if we start funding infrastructure, do we open the Pandora's box of, well, now we spend all the money on the infrastructure and we have no money to properly promote the destination? This bill puts a minimum 40% threshold we cannot drop below. I don't see that being an issue. Mr. Toots and I have talked about that. The one item that is probably of the biggest concern to myself, and I've probably given Jay heartburn expressing my concerns over this, that I want to advise you about. Not that it can't be done, but it's just an expenditure item that we're going to have to be aware of and we're going to have to be very careful about, is the provision that says an independent professional analysis performed at the expense of the County Tourist Development Council demonstrates the positive impact of the infrastructure project on tourist-related businesses in the county. Good news. They changed from some of the earlier versions of this bill. It is not the standard heads and beds. It is tourist-related businesses. Originally, it was lodging, owner-operators, or bed tax collectors. So now this goes your restaurant, your retail. It opens the door to other items, including service vendors, your bike rentals, your paddleboard rentals, kayaks, those kind of things. So while it opens up who must be affected, we're going to have to pay for that study. And it has to be an independent professional analysis. When you look at all the committee notes where this was discussed, the contemplation is independent means not in-house, and likely would mean someone not tied to other tourist-related businesses, not just bed tax collectors in the county. Frankly, Mr. Toots and I have looked a little bit. Not sure we have anybody in the area that does the data metrics. My recommendation to Mr. Toots, and we'll bring this back to you in strategic planning, though, is for us to start looking into this issue, because I do expect, I think we've used the term need for land purchase, upgrade facilities, roads, bike paths, probably no less than 36 times during this meeting alone. I expect we're going to see items under this. For instance, Mr. Kellenberger talked about the Driftwood property over at Scenic Gulf that we acquired. That's going to close prior to this bill actually becoming effective, even though the governor signed it. Means we're not going to have to fall under that. However, that property is one which may very well have fallen under this if we had to do it today. So in that scenario, we'd have to get a study that shows that that land acquisition for that public facility is going to benefit tourist-related business, and we're going to have to pay for someone to do that. Right now, my recommendation is, since that's going to be a TDC-level expense, and we expect this may be a pretty frequent occurrence over the course of a number of years, and we're talking about 5-year capital improvement elements, probably need to look at engaging an independent entity that we can then have do these studies for us as we need. So basically an ongoing service contract, like we establish a continuing contract with an engineer or an accounting firm. Just because I think if you go out and have to bid one of these every time you start going through the process, Start adding time to that land contract, start adding time to everything else, and frankly, I think you can start adding a lot of cost, because I could see these being very pricey studies given the limited market for this, and the fact that while Zender's back here, when we hire an ad agency, they're restricted. They don't get to come do work in market for other bed tax collectors that would be doing co-op buys. It prevents conflicts of interest. And while we restrict them, we're going to be asking one of these data groups to do it. So a group that makes a lot of money going out to every bed tax collector or tourist-related business doing data collection and analysis, they're probably not giving up those contracts just to do work for us on a couple times a year basis. So that's something we're going to be getting back to you. Frankly, this may be a single source type scenario because nobody out there is doing that level of independent professional analysis. Typically, we do this in-house. We always look at, I mean, that's what your legislative opinions have been historically, that your legal team and your staff provides and the BCC approves when we talk about a valid use of the TDT expenditure. This shifts that burden and says we can't do it ourselves, we're going to have somebody else. So the door is now open for a lot more broad use of our TDT monies to make infrastructure-related improvements. We've got to do a number of things to get there, and so the burden will start with us to do that and get it done right. But we'll keep you up to date on that. We just want to let you know that the bill number changed by the language getting shifted, and it did open up the door and change the language a little bit. I think overall, staff's analysis to this for you is that is a positive development for where we can spend some of the revenues we generate with this tourist development tax while protecting the general basis of it, and allows us to create better use of that money. So we'll get back to you with this during the strategic planning sessions. I know Mr. Tusa and staff are going to be looking at budgeting some potential dollars for both the acquisition of properties and some of these things, but more specifically that study activity. But we'll be coming back to you with that. But if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. If you want to see the bill itself, I've sent both the laws of Florida and the bill that was signed by the governor to Mr. Tusa. He has both of those now and is welcome to forward those on to you so you can see the exact language changed. I don't know that any other changes to the TDT portion of the statute dealing with beach park facilities radically changes anything we do. It's pretty simple. I think it was adding some language for some of the canal and estuary and lagoon locations around the state. We already operate under the outfalls for the dune lakes as part of our nature centers, so we're covered there. It doesn't really change that for us. But any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Clay. Just real quick to kind of wrap that up. So, we can discuss this during our strategic planning sessions, and we'll probably get our stuff ramped up. And then next TDC meeting in June, we'll start talking about some dates and when we can do that. But usually we kind of go another site. It's still obviously a public meeting, but just where we can kind of be more comfortable in a relaxed setting and just kind of roll up our sleeves and start having conversations. So, they're usually, Tim, you've participated in those before. Is it like a half a day, a whole day thing? I don't.
Whole day.
Whole day thing? Yeah. So we'll kind of fill you in at the next meeting a little bit more on that. But lots of things that we need to talk about, obviously, about moving forward. So, just one quick thing. Well, bringing up what Clay was talking about, the 40% that the legislature put in place for that threshold for marketing. We spend, just FYI, about 45% of our budget on marketing. So not a whole lot of room there. I mean, we're good on that threshold, but as far as us trying to find dollars for infrastructure improvements, I mean, we're already doing a lot of infrastructure improvements. So it's just something we're gonna have to look really hard at and look at our budget to see what we can fund. So anyway, that's all that I have. Any questions for me?
Since we're talking about legislation, how concerned, Jay, or should we be about this, customary use bill signed by the governor, potentially privatizing beaches?
I think a lot of people are concerned about it, as they should be. I think a lot of people think it's dead. It is not. The language that's in place is something that the county can work with. And so Sydney Noyes, county attorney, she is working on still moving forward. She's having to kind of backtrack a little bit, so we're losing some time. But we're all hopeful that we can still move forward with customary use.
So that's kind of where it is right now. Commissioner Anderson, do you want to add anything on that front?
Well, and I'll jump in, not to step on Commissioner Anderson's toes. I think in an abundance of caution, the legislation requires the county to receive judicial determinations, and because that may be progressing towards litigation, I'm going to step in here and throw myself in front of that question to Commissioner Anderson, advise him at this point probably best not to make any statements one way or the other, considering it's going to be a litigation matter. I will do this for the TDC. Ms. Noyes gave a very good update at the last BCC meeting. I don't know if she's briefed the commissioners in writing or memo form, but I will personally speak to her, and I'll invite her to both our strategic planning session to have an item on the agenda about that to kind of give you a one-to-one update. That's something I won't be handling. That'll be the county level handling it. But because there's still a lot of questions with what that judicial determination looks like, for example, one such issue, whether you can do it for all the beach at once, whether you can do it by segments of the beach or parcel by parcel, those are decisions that they're going to have to make. I think Mr. Tusa summed it up correctly. The county still is preparing to move forward, but there's some legal determinations that are going to need to be made on the legal team side of that and presented to the board for a decision about what they want to do. So should that become an executive session situation or something else, I'd rather Ms. Noyes, since she's not here to jump in front of it, me do that. And Mr. Anderson, not trying to step on your toes, but I know once we start heading towards litigation, Ms. Noyes is going to make sure that Mr. Theriak and any members of the legal team that have been involved are all consulted before we start going too forward with board positions and public policy statements.
Okay. Appreciate that clarification.
That's where we are on that.
All right.
I was hoping to hear what you had to say, Commissioner.
Thank you, Clyde.
So, anything else that Clay can answer?
No.
No, I'll say thank you for pushing through and purchasing and securing the property for our guests to use. Thank you.
Well, you know, I appreciate that, and I mean, we've done a lot. I mean, I've been here 2 years next week, so just we have a great team, and we've been able to accomplish a lot in 2 years. I mean, we've purchased 3 new beach accesses. We've purchased now 2 parking lots. You know, we're looking at a new TDC facility. So I mean, we're moving and we're getting things accomplished, and I'm really proud to have the team that supports me and supports you guys. So
Thank you for that foresight and
Thank
pushing
you.
through.
Here, here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. This time, any other general council comments? If there are none, any public comments? Is there a motion to adjourn this meeting?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Adjourned.
Throw our flak jackets on, our helmets, and back out there.
Good to see you again. Yeah, well, see more of you. All right.